Good morning. Would we all please stand for an invocation provided by Commissioner Barr, and then we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be present this morning. Lord, direct us and guide us. Thank you for the opportunity that we've already reached out into our community earlier this morning for good things that are happening. Thank you for the positive and community service-minded projects, helping others, helping the environment. Lord, just direct us and guide us here today. And may all that we do and say honors and pleases you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd like to call the April 24th, 2018 Washington County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. With that, I'd like to ask for a motion for the approval of the April 10th, 2018 minutes.
So moved.
Motion is second for the approval of those minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. And I'd also like to ask for the approval of the April 20th, 2018 minutes.
So made.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And we'll straighten you out on one of those sets of minutes. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Commissioners' reports and comments. Commissioner Kiefer.
I have one item. On Thursday of last week, I attended the 30th annual CFSI banquet, Congressional Fire Services Institute banquet in D.C. with students from our Tech High Fire and Rescue Academy and some members of our ESAC and local firefighters. This is an annual event. It draws about 1,600 folks at the banquet each year. And the keynote speaker was Kirsten Nielsen, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary for the country. So that was pretty cool to hear her speak and talk in particular about fire and rescue services in the country as it relates to Homeland Security. Washington County, this is a nationwide event. Washington County is rather well represented. Not only did our Tech High School Academy students, they led the color guard. The Kimball family from Williamsport led the Pledge of Allegiance. 3 generations of folks in the fire and rescue community in Williamsport led that. And Mike Weller, a local Washington County resident who's known for helping to spearhead the Children's Village, was given the Dr. Ann W. Phillips Award for Leadership in Fire Safety. And they had a great video on the startup of that organization and what they do. So Washington County probably covered a good quarter of that program that evening. And firefighters, like I said, from across the country, every state represented, got to hear some good things from us here in little old Washington County.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Klein.
No report. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Barr.
Yes, good morning. Of course, we've had a week-long break here. A number of different things in our community that have been very beneficial and very phenomenal, to say the least. First, I'd like to report on, if you missed Hairspray, the production the past 2 weekends that have been put on by the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, sorry for your misfortune, because it was an absolutely phenomenal presentation. When you attend those events, you sit there at the historic Maryland Theater to a packed house. Their 6th presentation is just incredible. You cannot fathom the fact that it's high school students putting on that level of a production. The quality and the everything about it is just phenomenal. So hats off to teachers and staff and all the students at Barbara Ingram School. We wish them the very best. And without a doubt, Saturday night's performance had to be the best of any of their presentations. The other couple things I want to mention, Friday a week ago, we were fortunate in Washington County to have Yumi Hogan, First Lady of Maryland, presenting her artwork at the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. It was a very nice reception. Up until the last few days, it was very uncertain whether the governor was going to be able to join her. In fact, he did. He came not as governor of Maryland, but as the spouse of the artist. And it was rather phenomenal. Governor Hogan, to the surprise of his security staff, was present and just meeting with folks, and it was just rather incredible. And through the first half hour of that presentation, one of the security folks in the room leaned over and tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, "Just heads up," he said, "Lieutenant Governor Rutherford and his wife, Monica, are on their way." And so not only did we have Governor Hogan and Mrs. Hogan, which is a rare experience, but a third set of security details arrived right here in downtown Hagerstown at our Museum of Fine Arts, and outstepped Lieutenant Governor Rutherford and his wife. And so it was just a fantastic event for our community, and well attended. It was actually a benefactor's reception for those that give on an annual basis to sustain and keep the Museum of Fine Arts, which is free to the public, open and ongoing. Left that event, just for the record, they whisked, at about 5:30, they whisked Governor Hogan out to the airport, and he had another event in Ocean City that evening, and Mrs. Hogan stayed and with her family and friends, and I think went to dinner at 28 South and spent the whole evening in our community and in downtown Hagerstown, I might add. Attended the HCC annual tribute fundraiser for endowment and scholarships at HCC. This year's honoree was Brent Fife from BFM Architectural Firm. Another good philanthropic event in our community, keeping things in good order at the community college. It was actually the first that the new incoming president that takes office June 1st was in town. Had the pleasure of sitting at the table with Jim and Teresa, and welcome them to our community. So all in all, the last couple of weeks have been busy. It's been positive and very good for not only Washington County, but Hagerstown. And I'm sure I forgot a few things, President Baker, but one other thing. I had Rob Slocum hand out, just for the record. I happen to be, many times as president of MACO, I'll make a report that things that we're struggling with, things we're dealing with, whether it's highway user revenues, expenses, budget, what have you, across the state of Maryland. We're not alone. We're not unique. Whether it's urban, rural, what have you, we all have things in common. But I found it very interesting that in a jurisdiction in another state, 1,000 miles from here, I was reading the newspaper in Daytona, Florida last week, and the headlines on the Daytona News Journal is about school resource officers. And it is word to word, detail to detail of our committee and what we're working with. And find it very interesting that, once again, it's not unique, it's not germane to us, and it's a universal issue. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. For myself, attended my social services meeting last evening, and they talked about their upcoming graduation, and we had a little discussion, and I think it would be appropriate for the county to provide some certificates to their graduates. And I don't have the date of the ceremony, but they encourage all of the commissioners to participate, and we should have plenty of certificates to divide up for each commissioner that participates to present to the graduates of the social services program. And also coming up on the 26th, I don't know if it's too late or not, if you haven't, commissioners haven't registered for the Teacher of the Year Award. It'd be nice to get as many county commissioners to that event as possible to show support of our teachers, and in particular the Teacher of the Year in Washington County. So that'll be the 26th. So, and also, Rob, I'd like to sometime this week, we'd like to get with you, and I'd just like to learn a little bit and talk a little bit more about the apparatus replacement fund for our emergency services vehicles. So just wanted to see what we're going to be doing for that in the future and so forth. I would like to talk to you about that one. And that concludes my report. Thank you. Okay, right on schedule. 10:25, citizens participation. We have any citizens here today that would care to participate? If we do, we'll start in the front row. All right, sir.
Yeah, I have a question, comment. Donnie Ravis, Hagerstown, also candidate for county commissioner in this upcoming election. My comments are concerning the day reporting center, and I just would like to know or have it sent to my email, donnieravis@gmail.com, how the allocations are going. I believe it's under a grant currently, but I know that it's possibly falling onto a matching with the county, but it seems like the dates are a little off. According to my notes, I was out there a week and a half ago. I'm an advocate for the program. I'd also like to see that there possibly is some user fees. As I understand it, I think it's $5 right now, but I think it could be raised a little more, maybe as they go through all the 5 phases. And the good news is, instead of them being incarcerated and sitting in a cell, they're actually out still producing and earning money, but also spending money into our economy. So I am an advocate for that. That's all I have. So if I get an email from you, Rob, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Have anyone else in the second row care to participate? Citizens participation, third row, fourth row. Anybody here want to participate in citizens participation? Okay, thank you. That concludes citizens participation, and now on these times here. Okay, we have a public hearing. You said times here.
We're going to do the water and sewer. As you saw the date or the times on the agenda, they were flip-flops. So the previous notice the county had sent out had water and sewer at 10:30 and the public hearing on the modification of landfill user fees at 10:45. So there was a question about that. And thanks to Herald Mail, they had sent out a clarification that's in the paper this morning. So the public hearing for the water and sewer rates is going to begin at 10:45. And the public hearing for the modification of landfill user fees will follow immediately after that. So we had a little bit of a time issue, but I think everyone's back on track now. So are these times accurate? No, this one. Water and sewer at 10:45, and landfill at 10:55, or as soon after as we can do so.
Thank you. We'll go back to, let's do the county staff reports. We have any staff here in the chambers who care to provide a report to the commissioners?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. I'll be very brief, but I wanted to make a report. I have a general fund contingency grant award that I'm bringing forward for your awareness. The Sharpsburg Volunteer Fire Company requested and was awarded $1,960 for the partial cost of a replacement fire hose. This was an unbudgeted and unexpected expense as a result of new testing methods. The company will pay the remaining cost of the hose from their small equipment budget. The project is consistent with the goals and the requirements of the General Fund Contingency Grant Program. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Any other staff in the chambers have a report to provide? Good morning, Mr. Sterling.
Morning. A couple weeks ago, I was in here to talk to you about the natural gas bid, getting the okay for that. It was bid last week. We were paying $447 a therm. The price is now $395.7 a therm, so it looks like about close to $20,000 savings a year, and that's with Washington Gas and Energy again. So hopefully, just want to give you a quick update. Hopefully, we'll get our consultant in to give you a quick breakdown of what it is. It's for 3 years. So we're in pretty good shape.
What was the savings again?
It's about 12%. Should be about $20,000 a year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other staff here today? Chambers care to provide a report? Okay. Attorney issues, administrative comments?
President Baker, I do have one positive comment that we received from a family in the Williamsport area. They had some issues with their plumbing, and after further investigation, it turned out that the issues they were having were the responsibility of the county. And accordingly, a department from the Department of Water Quality was dispatched. And according to the writer, this was probably the worst day that we've had in quite some time here, weather-wise. And I'll just summarize her very last paragraph here on her note. She reports, the day was miserable, the weather was very unpleasant, but your crew was awesome. They definitely went above and beyond the call of duty for us. Throughout the process, they remained very polite, professional, and informative. Please know that they are very much appreciated. Just one more example of the service that our fine crews, regardless of the department at the county, provide to our citizens. I just want to communicate that to you. So Dan, thank you. Mark, for continued service.
Okay, any other staff reports? Administrator?
I do, President Baker and Commissioners. First of all, thanks to Community Foundation and Brad Sell for kicking off the Washington County Gives campaign. May 1st apparently will be the first day next Tuesday when campaign donations will be received, and for the press room, Herald Mail for hosting that event. Thanks to Fountaindale for having the commissioners and staff out this morning and help plant a tree. Fantastic event that I'm sure will go on our, I don't see Danielle, but I'm sure that'll go on our page and social media for some fantastic, and thanks to the rain for holding off so we could do that outside rather than in the gym. I didn't know how that would go inside the gym, but so already a busy day. I wanted to remind you that May 1st there is a joint meeting with the Board of Ed and task force presentation, very brief presentation will be given next Tuesday as far as the findings and some brief recommendations, thoughts, budgets, that type of thing from that task force. And as Sarah is here, May 15 will be the budget hearing, so we are closing in on that date. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum. Any other staff reports? Youth Meritorious Award recipients are present. Are you expecting any other visitors? The winners? Ask them if they have anyone else coming. You don't have anyone else coming? Okay. So let's go ahead and move on down to the Youth Meritorious Awards presentation. And I'd like to ask Ms. Miller to give us a little overview of what this award is and so forth.
Good morning, Commissioners and Administration. The following individuals have been selected for the Youth Meritorious Award for the month of April. These students were nominated to receive this award by their teachers, school administrators, or parents. They were selected based on their scholastic achievements, leadership qualities, community services performed, or other positive contributions to their school and family. These exceptional youths have consistently worked and distinguished themselves as model students and members of our county. It is my pleasure to present the following youths for recognition today. Gretchen Stanger, 12th grade, Clear Spring High School, and Lauren Moore, 11th grade, Boonesbar High School. Thank you.
Thank you. This is one of the most enjoyable parts of being a county commissioner when we get to provide awards to our youth in our community. Many times we hear the youth of today are the future for tomorrow. So we'd like to think that these Youth Meritorious Awards recipients are going to be, hopefully, many of them, the recipients will be sitting in the seats that we're sitting in today. And again, you are our future leaders, and we're very, very proud to be presenting these certificates. So I'll go first, if Commissioner Barr is okay. He's a Boonesboro graduate, so he gets to present the Boonesboro certificate.
1925. Easy over there.
Thank you very much.
winner will be Gretchen Stinger. And I'd like to ask Ms. Stinger to come up here. Thank you. And I'm extremely honored to be presenting this to Gretchen. I was fortunate enough to go to high school with her uncle, Lindy, ran track with her uncle at Williamsport High School. Her father was an outstanding track athlete at Williamsport High School. You were 76 or 77? 78, there you go. So he was a little bit after me. But I did follow his career, and he was an outstanding hurdler. So, again, the Youth Meritorious Summary will be for Gretchen. And it was the information was provided by Nancy Armstrong. That's who your endorsee was. Where's Nancy? Thank you very much. And I am nominating Gretchen Stinger because she is such a well-rounded student. Gretchen plays both volleyball and basketball for Clear Spring. Academically, she is an honor student and a member of the National Honor Society. She was recently crowned 2017 Miss Washington County Outstanding Teen. She is a student member on the board of breast cancer awareness of Cumberland Valley and has a wonderful platform called Hats for Hope. Hats for Hope was started because when Gretchen was 5 years old, she had a brain tumor. It was benign. However, they had to shave her head. Her parents gave her hats to wear which made her smile. She has made donations of hats to both hospice and breast cancer awareness of Cumberland Valley. She is a member of student government and is also a best buddy at Clear Spring, where she has lunch with a special needs student each week. She always has a smile on her face, and she always tries to make time to talk to everyone. They were the kind words and very, very thoughtful from Ms. Armstrong that she provided for you today. So with that, Washington County Commissioners and the county would like to provide a certificate of recognition. The Washington County Board of County Commissioners do hereby present this certificate of recognition to Gretchen Stinger in recognition of receiving the April 2018 Youth Meritorious Award. We, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, hereby commend your accomplishment. Your hard work and dedication demonstrates that you are a tremendous role model for all youth to emulate. Congratulations on your achievement and best wishes on your future endeavors. Again, thank you so much. Congratulations. Well deserved. And we would also like to provide our county lapel pin. And it has 9 stars around there. It represents each municipality of Washington County, so one of those stars stand for Clear Spring. We also have an Office Max gift certificate in the amount of $100. You spend this on your mom, not your dad. So that's yours also. And we would also like to provide you with a certificate, and she will take your picture. Ms. Yoder. Say it, this is up to you now, or introduce who's with you here today.
With me today is my mom, Amy Stinger, and my father, Mickey Stinger. Thank you all so much.
Wonderful. Congratulations. You're here with your parents. I'll have to introduce them when we're finished. And, it's my pleasure as an alumni of Boonesboro a long, long time ago. We won't get into that. I got some friends over here that will make a long story out of that. But anyway, Lauren is here with us today as an 11th grade student at Boonesboro High School. And she was nominated by her mother, Paula Moore. And Paula Moore endorsed the following. Lauren Moore has a kind heart, a drive to succeed, and compassion to help others. She gets goals for herself, has high self-expectations, and works hard to achieve her goals. As a member of the Boonesboro High School varsity soccer team, indoor track and field team, and outdoor track and field team, She has kept her academic focus in order to earn a GPA of over 4.0. She has earned team state titles in track and earned the same and entered the state semifinal title in soccer. In addition to high school sports, she also played soccer through the Antietam United Travel Soccer Club and Boonesboro AYSO outside of school. I don't know how you have time for all these things. Wow. She has been the president of the French Honor Society for the past 2 years and is a member of the National Honor Society. She helps other students transition to high school through the Linked Leader program, where she welcomes new students, shows them how to succeed in high school, and helps new students to be successful. She has been a member of the Student Government Association, Boonesboro Literacy Arts Magazine, and Class Cabinet. Lauren enjoys playing the cello in the Boonesboro Orchestra during the school, and after hours, she is a member of the Boonesboro Alternative String Orchestra. Oh my gosh, I don't think you sleep. She has achieved the leadership role of first chair cello in both orchestras. That's phenomenal. Outside of school, she helps mentor an elementary student by volunteering. She has become a member of the Meritus Medical Center volunteer and auxiliary, and she has shadowed physician assistants in urgent care, orthopedics, and family practice to help pursue her goal of becoming a physician assistant. She has volunteered in the American Odyssey Relay, Washington County Free Library, and Antietam National Battlefield Memorial Illumination. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So with all that, I'd like to present you with an Office Max certificate or gift card, the coveted Washington County pin, and also we'll present a certificate of recognition to Lauren Moore in recognition of receiving the April 2018 Youth Meritorious Award. We, the Board of County Commissioners, Washington County, Maryland, hereby commend your many, many accomplishments. Your hard work and dedication demonstrates you are a tremendous role model for all youth to be emulated. Congratulations on your achievement and best wishes on your future endeavors. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
I'm here today with my parents, Paula and Doug Moore, and I want to thank them for always supporting me. Yeah, that'll do the parents. Okay, here we go. Great, thank you very much. We'll do parents now.
Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning proposed modifications of water and sewer rates for FY 2019. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. We will first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. And now I'd like to ask Mr. DeVita, the Deputy Director of Operations, the Division of Environmental Management, and Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, to introduce the information.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you two today?
Great. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I guess you're going from the most pleasurable experience to one of the least pleasurable experiences. Sorry.
I have to agree.
We're here today for the public hearing for the proposed modification of water and sewer rates for FY19. Water and sewer revenue requirements show that an increase in water and sewer revenue is necessary to facilitate the Department of Water Quality's long-range financial plans. The presented rate schedule for FY19 is based on this requirement. For the sewer rates, the proposal is to move the residential full service. First, we'll discuss the base amounts for, and that covers 6,000 gallons. Current rate is 118.40, proposed rate 122.20. Commercial 1 full service, current rate 120.58, proposed 125. Commercial 2 122.75, proposed 127.59. Commercial 3 122.75, proposed 127.59. Volunteer service 118.40 to 123.05, and residential commercial collection service $55.40 to $56.30. The volume charges per 1,000 gallons for residential full service $6.78 to $7.08, commercial 1 $7.61 to $7.88, commercial 2 $8.70 to $8.96, commercial 3 $5.93 to $6.15. Volunteer service $6.78 to $7.04. Non-metered accounts $159.08 to $164.68, and wholesale $6.93 to $7.27. For the average residential customers, these rate increases are approximately 3.5% in total, or $5.60 per quarter. That was sewer. Do you want me to move forward with water? Just as a, okay. Water rates for the base rate for residential full service, current quarterly rate is $101.76. Proposed is $104.76. Commercial 1 is $101.76. Proposed $104.76. Commercial 2 $123.75 to $129.40. Volunteer $101.76 to $104.78. For the volume charges, residential full service from $11.28 to $11.78. Commercial 1 $11.54 to $12.05. Commercial 2 from $9.05 to $9.30. Volunteer $11.28 to $11.82. And non-metered accounts $169.44 to $175.44. And for the average residential water customer, these also represent a 3.5% increase, or approximately $6. The increase in rates will create additional revenue for the water and sewer funds, approximately $275,000 for the sewer fund and almost $20,000 for the water fund. The increase to the water and sewer rates are important for the overall and long-term health of the funds. The sewer fund continues to use a fund balance of $2.7 million to balance, and the water fund uses a fund balance of $449,000 to balance. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think all of you know that this is the first time that a lot of us have gone through this process at this level. We've been parts of it in the past, but at this level, so I think it's, before we go any further, I think it's only appropriate that, speaking for Mark, I'm sure Mark won't mind sitting, while he's sitting back there, that we thank the people that actually helped us put the budget together. Our department our people are incredible. The chief plant operators for each individual plant has to go through each of their operating budgets, and they have to look and make sure that everything that they request, which was very minimal this year, is absolutely necessary and needed, and that they're operating their plant as efficiently as possible. With each superintendent had to look at every single part of their operation to make sure that we maximized the efficiency of everything that they did. While we're doing all this, we're also doing the CIP budget, which means Mark is, and all of us are looking 10 to 15 years in the future to make sure that we have the capacity and we have the ability to meet the future plans for the county. And not least of which is Sarah and her department, which was immensely helpful to us in terms of helping us through this whole process. So once we put all of our requests and all of our thoughts and ideas together, we met with Sarah and Leslie and Kim and the people in their department, and they were absolutely tremendous in entertaining all of our, what I'm sure seemed to be pretty stupid questions at the time, to help us through the whole process. And this is a very arduous process, and this is a process that we do not take lightly. This is something that I know that everyone is very sensitive to. We as customers, most of our employees are customers also. So any rate increase that affects the county affects us also. All the decisions that we make are very tough decisions. We never make decisions on yes and no. It's always about what's the best for us to do at the time. And some of those decisions are extremely important and very hard to do because we do have mandates that come down to us from both EPA and MDE that we have no choice. We are required to comply with. So we have to factor all of that in too. And then we also have to factor into the quality of service that we want to make sure that we maintain to our customers. And as I think Jim, and I appreciate the fact that Jim read that letter, and we get those comments and phone calls all the time. And our people are out there in all kinds of weather, and we have to make sure that we maintain that because that's what the citizens of Washington County expect, and that's what we intend to provide to them. So as we move forward with this budget, I can say that this is about as thin as we can possibly make it. There's very minimal in terms of operation, very minimal requests. I think there's maybe 2 pieces of equipment that we're asking to replace. One is 25 years old, and both of which are extremely important for the operations of the plant. So I just wanted to ensure the county commissioners and the citizens of Washington County that we take our jobs very seriously, and we also take our duties to them and our responsibilities to make sure that we're operating as efficiently as possible very serious also. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now open the hearing for public comment. We have anyone here today that would care to comment, participate? Okay, last chance. No one here to participate. Okay. Commissioners have any questions?
I have a question for someone. Just reading in the Herald Mail the article about this very topic, it was mentioned that of the 25 water and sewer projects over the last few years, well, since 2012, no, over the last few years, 12 were mandated by the state, and the other 13, I suppose, were not mandates. What were those projects? What did the projects entail that weren't state mandated? Were they just general, because population growth, we had to expand?
He thought he was going to get away with it. I can generally answer the question,
Okay.
is that if it's not mandated by the state for technical reasons, for reasons of compliance with lower standards or standards that are dictated by the Chesapeake Bay, the rest of it is usually capacity issues and infrastructure issues. So, Mark, if you want to be more specific, please do.
We've upgraded several pump stations. The Keysville pump station was redone a few years ago for capacity, and it also reached its useful life, so the equipment was starting to fail, so we rebuilt that station. We've also done some work at the Sharpsburg pump station, actually in the town of Sharpsburg. We had some structures in there that were deteriorating we had to go in and fix. We've upgraded the PO1 pump station. It was mainly for expansion of capacity for future development, so we expanded that pump station's abilities and upgraded it. We've done some I&I work. Several years ago, we did about 3 miles of slip lining to the collection systems in the halfway area and spot repairs to help reduce the inflow that we were getting at our plants. I'm not sure of the other unmandated projects. I mean, if you want a more detailed list, I can give it to you.
We can provide that.
No, that's fine. The upgrade at the Conococheague plant,
Yes.
the biomag technology, I remember wasn't that long ago we started that project. Was that a requirement? What was the need to, was that to take on more capacity?
No, it's a state mandate. Any plant over 500,000 gallons a day capacity is required to meet the state's ENR, which stands for Enhanced Nutrient Removal Strategy. It basically lowers our effluent limits to like 4 milligrams per liter of nitrogen and 0.3 for phosphorus. That was a state mandate because that plant was rated for 4.1 million gallons. So it had to be upgraded as a state mandate. And as a mandate, we actually received a little over 60% grant funding from the state for that. And plus we got a loan of 1.8.
1.8 million, which we saved around 460,000 for the loan forgiveness portion, and then on the additional interest that we saved another 400,000 to 500,000 based on fluctuating in whatever interest rate we would have gotten on a bond. So yes, that was a great savings.
Still 40% of $30 million is $12 million.
Yes.
And despite staff's fantastic effort in constantly trying to find ways to save money, it's still a $12 million mandate, which, not here to argue or against the load reductions required, but when you take that with the HUR funding that you've spoken about recently, up to 65 million,
60.
and you add the 12 for a mandate, we're starting to approach, just on these two categories, we're starting to approach $70 million. So something to keep in mind.
Kind of getting at, part of this increase, is it correct to say, pays for the improvements on the infrastructure that we have, that we need to upgrade our facilities?
Yes.
So, okay.
And just to add to that ENR strategy, that since that ENR strategy was implemented, most of the major plants in the state have already been upgraded. And because of those upgrades, you can actually see the difference in the Chesapeake Bay. You can see the difference in the rockfish. You can see the difference in the crab population. And that's all part of contributing to why we have to do what we do. So there is a benefit to the cost, but the cost is significant.
When can we expect to see these rates
Go into effect?
decline? I guess that's the word.
Oh, decline.
Level out.
Well, the rate model that we use, it's a 10-year projection, and from what I can say about it is that, the years that are closer to us now, FY19, FY20, they are more solid than the out years. A lot of changes can happen in 5, 7, 8, 9 years. So I'm not really sure exactly when we will see a decline, as long as these mandates continue to happen.
What I can say, what is in our control, is that we are looking at cost-effective ways. For instance, Mark's mentioned I&I inflow, which if we can reduce that and spend money to reduce that inflow, that's less upgrade that we may need because of capacity. So those are cost advantages that we're looking at. We're also looking at cost advantages of new plants coming on. How big do they need to be? Can we keep some plants that are under the 500,000 gallon per day quota, which then doesn't meet the nutrient load reduction criteria? So we're investigating a host of cost-saving propositions that may help the model look better rather than worse as we move out.
And to just add to that as well, Rob, we're also looking at doing more Maryland water quality loans, hopefully rather than issuing bonds, since we did realize such a savings. So that's something that maybe we'll look into as well.
A few years ago, we were right there for a rededication of the Smithsburg wastewater treatment plant, which has the biomag technology. It was expensive. I forget what our share, but it was mandated also to do that. But by using that new technology of biomag, did we not increase the capacity of an existing treatment plant?
No, that plant was not a capacity upgrade. It was
just,
we were having issues with our ammonium discharge limits. We were in violation of our permit. So we put the biomag in to get us back into compliance.
by using the biomag, did we increase the capacity for that area?
The plant is still rated for 0.33. That's what it was rated for then too.
But it eliminated the need to replace it by doing the upgrades and the repairs to the ammonia.
It brought us back into compliance.
Okay, gotcha.
But if we ever do expand the plant, the biomag would be utilized for the plant expansion in the
The other
future.
question I have, we have something called the North End Sewer Enhancement Project. Is that scheduled to be underway, or is there a project in that area to rewrite the flow of sewer so we can have more capacity for economic development? Is that the correct name of the project?
Is that the
or-
capacity management project?
I
So
believe so.
that is in the plan. I think it's a $9 million project, and it's
When
in the,
would that begin?
I think it's in the plan for 2020.
I think the construction money is at least 2 to 3 years out for the construction phase. The engineering phase has money coming available currently, and I think there's more coming available in 19's budget for the engineering side of it.
I guess my point is to show that we're trying to be ahead of the game to meet our state mandates, but also encourage economic development with these projects, which lower taxes and the burden on the taxpayers in a more roundabout way with everything. And one final statement, I see my friends from Williamsport here. In April 2005, I was sworn in as a town councilman, and 30 days later, we were told by the county that our rates were going to go up 10% per year. And now that I see that, I know we aren't nowhere near that. We are seeing an average around 3.5, but I'm in lockstep with Mr. Baker that I'd like to see these rates start to come down. I know we have costly upgrades and repairs, but it would be nice somehow to assure the citizens in the future that there is maybe an end to some of these higher rates increase. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, commissioners? The public hearing is now concluded. Last chance for commissioner comments. Thank you, and we will.
Right. I think normally, I should say normally, but a lot of times you'll wait and make a decision after the public hearing on the budget. These would have to be acted upon prior to the adoption of the budget, so we just need to keep that in mind, and the same with the next public hearing. But I think previous boards have wanted to allow the public to have another opportunity to comment at the budget public hearing.
Which again is May 15.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning proposed establishment and modification of certain landfill user fees, FY 2019. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. We will first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. And now I'd like to ask Mr. Mason and Ms. Greaves to present the information. How are you two again today?
Good, thank you.
Good, great. Again, public hearing today for the proposed establishment and modification to certain landfill user fees for FY19. The proposed fee schedule as presented is requested as one facet of the overall proposal to help address the projected FY19 Solid Waste Department operational budget shortfall. The proposed rates more closely reflect the current and projected cost of landfill and recycling operations and are also in line with landfill user rates at other facilities in our local region. The changes requested include for the minimum scale charge to go from $10 to $15, the residential trash to go from $52 a ton to $55 a ton, the truck, auto and light truck tires, 1 to 5 tires would be $5 each. If you had 6 or more, it would be at a cost of $250 a ton. Equipment and agriculture tires changed from $250 to $350 per ton. Dirt, $20 a ton. Recycling, $52 a ton. Mattresses, $10 each. Animal carcasses, $200 per ton. Regular residential permits for permits purchased between January 1 and May 1, $140 annual. And then residential permits for unlimited disposal of yard debris would be $160 annual. And then a second permit for the same residence is proposing to go from $65 to $70 annual. The modification to certain landfill user fees will increase revenues by approximately $440,000. Landfill user fees have not increased since 2012. And just like any cost, the cost of operating the solid waste fund has increased. It's important to note that the solid waste fund is a self-supported fund, and even though it is self-supported, it continues to receive some support from the general fund. If the proposed fee increases are not approved, the solid waste fund may be forced to cut programs or receive an additional appropriation from the general fund. Do you have anything to add?
Just for clarification on a couple of these items. Most of these items are per ton. The carcass fee, the dirt, the waste fees are per ton. The minimum applies to all of those. The mattresses and then the tires are per each basis. And then we are proposing the residential permit with a yard debris permit is $160. That's for both combined. And asking for a yard debris permit, if you buy it by itself, to be $50 annual. You still get unlimited residential waste and yard debris drop off with those permits. Nothing's changing from the amount you can drop off. So at that, at this point, we are just trying to keep moving forward with the programs we already offer. Like Sarah said, if we can't get these funds approved, we may look to cut services just to minimize the amount of money that we have to take from the general fund. We're trying to be self-supporting, which we're, set up to be. So these increases are to just
Support the fund.
Yeah, support the fund and take as little money as possible from the general fund.
Okay, thank you. We'll now open the hearing for public comment. Do we have anyone here today that would care to testify? Okay, we don't have anyone here to testify. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Fine.
I have a question or two or comments. How much support from the general fund have we been providing otherwise?
I think the amount in the FY19 budget is close to $900,000. Before that, it was around $450,000 off the top of my memory.
And part of that is, the commissioners already support the closed landfills, so that's part of the funding. And then I think this year it's based off of some debt service.
Go ahead.
It'll drop from 900,000 in
2020?
It will drop back down. We are actually looking into why this debt service payment has spiked like that. So hopefully I'll have some more answers for you in a couple weeks on that.
The other question, year or two, we lowered commercial hauling by the ton to encourage large haulers to return. Has that been successful, not successful, or did we do enough of a discount, or what?
We have seen an increase from a couple of haulers, but we have Waste Management, which has a landfill 15 minutes to the north of us and another one 20 minutes to the south, and they give themselves really good rates.
Yeah, basically they've taken clients or customers.
Right. So, right now, City of Hagerstown trash is collected by Waste Management, so we lose that revenue. We've lost it for the last 6 years.
A couple of my suggestions, I really don't like the fee for the box springs and mattresses. We may create a dilemma that we're not really expecting with trash being discarded. So I'd like for something like that to be considered, or what would be the estimated loss versus county. Like, for example, we just had a major cleanup the other week down in South County with how many tires collected?
Yes, several times, which was at an expense of the counties, because people dumped them there instead of the land.
I understand what you're saying about trying to be self-sufficient, but maybe at one point we're doing the reverse and maybe encouraging people not to want to contribute. And I have one more question after you.
Oh, I think your points are duly noted. So when we look at Clean County Initiative, if it's the desire of the county commissioners to hear more about what we may be able to do to reduce that particular fee so you don't get those things around the county, I'm not saying we have a silver bullet that's going to cure that ill, but we can at least bring an option to you that says from another funding source, perhaps we can do something. We'll definitely investigate it, because we are prompting this Clean County Initiative that says we want to be clean. We want to be obviously very environmentally sound. So,
two other remaining questions. Explain the carcass. Why $200? What is a carcass? Is it your...
Well, most of the carcasses we get are from the auction houses. So when there's an animal that doesn't sell, it may die at the facility, and they need a place to bring it. Right now, we only charge $52 a ton, but it's extra work for the employees because they have to dig a hole, have to bury it right away. So we're just trying to recoup some costs for burying the carcasses.
Calls to you about that increase for that particular service?
No.
All right, one other question. I always get asked this a lot of times. Recycling. Explain why recycling costs. Explain that no longer people are accepting glass and why we need to charge a fee for recycling when we're trying to do a Clean County initiative.
Well, it does cost us,
it's not free.
Our current contract is with Allied Waste Republic. They come in and get our recycling boxes from transfer stations and 40 West landfill, and then they take and sort and do whatever with it. So it does cost us money. The permit, that was set up several years ago, before I was deputy director. I don't know all the rationale behind it and why it was done a certain way, but that current board decided that that's how they were going to tackle the recycling issue. I know at the time we had the boxes set up throughout the county for free recycling, and those were abused horrendously. We had to have a individual drive around with a pickup truck and pick up couches and chairs and bags of trash from all those sites. It got to the point where the property owners said, we don't want the boxes on our property anymore. It's too much of a hassle. So I think that kind of prompted some changes, and that's when the permit, I believe, came about. And the permit was set up to try to recoup some of the costs of the recycling process.
Sorry, forgive the interruption. One of the other questions I've been receiving is why do we no longer recycle or accept glass as recycling? Would you explain?
We, as a county, still do. I know the city of Hagerstown does not because of their recycling contractor. I know Apple Valley Waste has stopped accepting it. Recycling is like everything else. It's market driven.
We still accept it as a county.
Right now, but those bids are going to go out this year. So
what do we do with it when we collect it? Well,
right now, it's
Accumulates.
collected and it's still recycled. Allied Waste Republic has not said no yet. That may change. And it's all based on the fact that it is cheaper to make glass from scratch, from sand, than it is to make new glass from recycled glass.
Thank you for that clarification,
Yes.
because that's a lot of.
We get questions on that all the time.
It's confusing. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I have two questions. One, to pick up on what Commissioner Klein said, and Rob about the Clean County Initiative. Our transfer stations only accept bagged garbage, is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a possibility, or what's the likelihood of maybe having special days throughout the year where maybe tires can be recycled? So maybe the local residents in that area might come to the transfer station that day for tires, and maybe another day mattresses.
We've had different programs throughout the year. The state has provided funding, grant funding for scrap tire days, which we've had, I'd say 3 or 4 over the last 5 or 6 years, and tremendous response. We haven't heard anything about special funding for that this year, but we always keep our eyes open for those kind of opportunities. The rates that we're proposing for the tire increases are based off our new contract, and that costs us $200 a ton to have the tires removed from our facility. So we're just trying to break even with the scrap tires.
And I think for the tires, that's probably less than what you would have to pay to get your tires taken by an auto dealership or the tire company when you're getting new tires in your car. They probably charge the same or a little more than that fee anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is now, but yeah.
The other question I have, I'm going to turn to Sarah to maybe help me articulate this answer a little better. We spoke this morning. I've received some questions about come June 30th, July 1st, we'll know more on the fate of the unauthorized $250,000 loan. How does if that money's reimbursed to us or if it's not, how does that impact our need to increase fees? Does it have an impact?
So to that, I would say, of course, if we receive the $250,000, it would be cash to the fund. It would be part of the fund balance. So the fund would be able to draw on that fund balance to help support itself. In saying that, I don't think that it's a fix for the fund. It's almost more of a delay for the rate increases and $250,000 is about half of what the proposed user fee increases would provide as far as revenue. So certainly if we had that money today, maybe we could offer a delay of the fee increases, but I don't think that would negate the need for those increases.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
On my, Commissioners, any questions? On my paper here, I guess I'm just looking at 4 fees, like your dirt, I just have $20 a ton. I don't have what we're currently charging.
We do not have a rate for dirt itself.
Okay, how
Currently we label it as building material, so it's $75 a ton, which if it's riddled with concrete and asphalt, then that's fine. That's what the rate should be. But if you're doing a just excavation project somewhere, contractors call us all the time and say $75 is going to break our bid. Do you have a lower rate? So this is kind of in response to the community reaching out and saying, hey, can you help us out with just clean fill, basically? Can we have a place to dump clean fill at something less than $75 a ton?
How do we determine if it's clean fill?
Well, we'll inspect it when it comes in and
For contaminations and everything?
yeah, we'll inspect it.
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Can the clean fill then be used as daily cover?
Yes.
So that's part of the reason of the cost reduction.
Yes.
It's an efficiency.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I have $52 a ton for recycling.
Right. We currently do not have a tipping fee for recyclables. You have to have a permit to recycle in Washington County right now. So this opens up that we have customers come in and just say, I don't want to buy a permit, I just want to bring in recyclables.
Okay, I
But right
understand.
now, we don't have that mechanism to have them just come in and recycle things.
And then mattresses, that's part of building debris?
Well, it's we just charge general trash right now at $52 a ton.
Okay, and then on your animal carcasses, I thought you gave me we we have currently $56 a ton?
$52 a ton, that's just regular residential trash.
What would it cost to cremate an animal of a ton?
Well, there's a crematorium in Boonesboro that charges $140 a ton. So that we kind of are pricing our fee to not put them out of business, but still be attractive to some.
And is it legal to dump animal carcasses and bury them?
No, no longer. You used to be able to bury them on your farm if it came from your farm, but I don't believe that's
The
true
landfill's
anymore.
allowed to bury them?
Yes, well, we are allowed by permit, but our solid waste plan says we can't take them, so I need to find clarification on that as well. Our MDE has no issue with it, which is why it's in our permit we can. I need to find out why the solid waste plan says differently.
Okay.
Dave, you had a better breakdown of than $200 per ton on carcass. I think there's a more user-friendly fee, or am I mistaken?
The carcasses was just, like I said, the place in Boonesboro charges $140 per ton.
But household pet, for instance,
well then,
or an animal on the side of the road or something like that.
The minimum still applies. So right now
Which
it's
is-
$10. We're asking for a
Okay,
$15
that's-
minimum. So if you bring in most pets, if you decide to bury them at the landfill, would be that minimum charge. You might get into, if you picked up a deer along the side of the road, brought it in, you might be in that $20 range. But we really do not get household pets, roadkill. We get from the auction houses that bring in cows, pigs, those kinds of. I believe they take it to Boonesboro. I know our highway department takes it to Boonesboro.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners? Public hearing is now concluded. Last chance for commissioner comments. Thank you, and we'll be making the decision on this right before we approve our budget, which will be presented at May 15th, Rob?
May 15th, yes, sir.
Just wanted to see if you remember that date.
May 15th.
Thank you. Okay, 15th Annual Museum Ramble in May proclamation, Board of County Commissioners. How are you this morning? Good. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Betsy DeVore with the Visit Hagerstown and Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau. We are the proud sponsor for the 15th year in a row of the annual Museum Ramble. Anna Coedo is with me she's the curator of the Miller House, and she's also president of the Washington County Association of Museums and Historical Sites. And they are the actual curator of this program. So we are thrilled to be able to offer it, and I'm going to introduce you to Anna so she can say something to you too.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here this morning. This is my first year as president of the Museums Association, and I am very proud to be here in front of you for the 15th annual Ramble. This has been a wonderful event that allows, I believe we have 23 participants this year. Most of the county's museums, cultural institutions, and historic sites to showcase what it is they do and how special they are. And it really is a wonderful experience because it allows a lot of the people who would not have normal access to these sites, whether it's because these sites don't offer regular hours or or the admission fee has been waived for these sites. It allows everyone in the county and visitors from outside the county to enjoy and experience the county's beautiful cultural, institutional heritage and historical heritage. So we are very pleased to be able to bring this to us, and I believe that even more than the 23 participants, our close to 30 members all receive crucial support from the county. So, thank you for making this possible and allowing us to showcase what the county has to offer.
Thank you.
I would like to add just one little factoid from my boss, Dan Spadden, that we hosted 1.2 million people last year, and that created 80 new jobs, and tourism now employs 7.9%, almost 8, of the county's workforce. We're very proud of that. Thank you for all your support.
Thank you. And we do have a proclamation to present, and I'd like to ask Commissioner Klein if he would do the presentation.
My pleasure to present this proclamation today on behalf of the commissioners. Washington County Association of Museums and Historical Sites History Week and Museum Ramble, May 1st through the 7th, 2018. Whereas there are more than 30 museums and historical sites. Why don't you come on up here since we're embarrassing you? Oh, yeah. Retake, cut, splice that tape. We have other members here. It's okay. Start the tape. Washington County Association of Museums and Historical Sites History Week and Museum Ramble, May 1st through the 7th, 2018. Whereas there are more than 30 museums and historical sites throughout Washington County that hold treasures of historical interest and display our art and heritage. Many of our museums are nationally recognized and privately held, most of which are staffed by volunteers. And whereas Washington County is rich in opportunities for residents and visitors alike, it is significant in its heritage and attractions and offers more than 38 national, state, county, and city parks, which enhances our community because of our culture, of our hospitality, in addition to honoring our history and celebrating our past. The Museum Association of Historical Society contributes to our prosperous future. And whereas the Washington County Association of Museums and Historical Sites and the Historical Society work on behalf of all citizens of Washington County to help attract visitors here. The 7th Annual Washington County Museum Ramble is scheduled for May 1st through the 31st, 2018. This special event, co-sponsored by the co-sponsored by the Visit Hagerstown and Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau, is a special tour of many of the museums throughout our county. And now, therefore, that means I'm coming to a close. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, hereby praise the efforts of the Historical Society and the Association of Museums and Historical Sites, and do hereby celebrate May 1 through May 7th, 2018 as Washington County History Week in Washington County, Maryland. Congratulations and thank you on behalf of the Washington County Board of Commissioners. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you down there. Here, grab a hold of that. That's yours.
Okay, Washington County Commissioners Public Improvement Bonds of 2018 authorizing resolution. Ms. Rader, Ms. Edlin, how are you two today? Welcome again.
Hello there. Nice to be before you again. You know, when we get to the now therefore part of one of my resolutions, we're just getting started, not ending. But, so this year, you all have been through the bond process several times. This year, we're doing only new money bonds. There is no refunding component. The maximum principal amount of the bonds will not exceed $14,485,000. They're being issued to finance certain infrastructure, public safety, public facilities, and environmental projects. The last maturity date of the bonds is scheduled to be July 1, 2038, and interest will be payable each January 1 and July 1, beginning January 1, 2019. As has been the case for the past couple years, the Chief Financial Officer has been delegated the authority to make changes to the amortization schedule that is set forth in the resolution, both prior to the actual bond sale and even once the bids come in. The CFO is given the authority to make some adjustments to the both the sizing of the bonds and the amortization schedule for the bonds, because the last couple years bidders have often been bidding with fairly large premiums, which may allow us to reduce the actual par amount of the bonds that the county actually has to issue in that case. We always build in that authority over the last couple years. We are currently scheduled to hold the bond sale on May 8th. That date is always subject to cancellation and rescheduling in case the capital markets have moved the wrong way and the county's financial advisor gives the advice that it might be good to delay a sale. If the sale is delayed beyond May 31st, the Chief Financial Officer is given the authority to change the principal, interest, and optional redemption dates that are set forth in the resolution. The last couple of years, we've had what we refer to as 10-year call, that you can't call the bonds until 10 years approximately after issuance. Given some capital market changes, we've reduced that to a 9-year call this year. And the financial advisor has indicated that they don't think there will be any penalty to the county by reducing that call period, particularly because the Internal Revenue Service and the United States Treasury did away with advance refundings as of the end of 2017. Having a shorter call period means that in the future, if a refinancing opportunity presents itself, you won't have to wait so long to refinance these bonds. The resolution, as it typically does, approves the substantially final form of the preliminary official statement that was provided to you and authorizes the president and/or the chief financial officer to make any changes prior to mailing that preliminary official statement. We are scheduled to mail that next week. The resolution authorizes the preparation and distribution of an official statement that lays out the sale results once the sale has occurred. The resolution contains the county's covenant to continue complying while these bonds are outstanding with the provisions of SEC Rule 15C212, which requires that the county deliver certain annual financial information and operating data to the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board's EMMA data system, and also the county will publish advice of certain events if and when they occur. Those events include things like a rating change, the redemption of bonds, the defeasance of bonds. Most importantly, the resolution pledges the county's full faith and credit and unlimited taxing power to payment of the bonds, but it also provides that debt service on the bonds are payable from any other sources as long as those sources don't violate federal or state restrictions. There are standard provisions regarding approving the form of bond that is set forth within the resolution, transfer, exchange, mutilation, or lost bonds, the fact that the bonds will be registered under the Depository Trust System's book entry only system, which means purchasers of the bonds don't actually get to hold physical bonds. Their ownership of the bonds will be represented by book entry transfers made by the brokers they use. And also, Manufacturers and Traders Trust Company is appointed as the bond registrar and paying agent, as it has been for the county's general obligation bonds that are publicly offered for years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions, Commissioners? I kind of have a request. We have $12 million for tax supported, and I guess just over the last 5 years, I'd like to know how much we borrowed for tax supported, and then what we paid back towards the tax supported debt per year. And I'd like to have the same for the self-supported.
All right.
If I could get that, I'd like to have that. Okay, any other questions, comments, Commissioners? Okay, if none, need a motion to approve the recommended motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you. Okay, presentation of draft 3 of the FY 2019 general fund budget and the 2019 through the 2028 capital budget. Ms. Greaves and Ms. Edlin, welcome again. Where'd Kim get to? Oh, here she is.
Okay, good morning again.
Good morning.
All right, we're here for the draft 3 of the 2019 general fund budget and draft 3 of the 2019 to 2028 capital budget. We do look forward today in getting approval to move the budget forward to public hearing, which is currently scheduled for May 15th. This approval is important to comply with state regulations surrounding the timing and advertisement of the public hearing for the proposed real property tax rates. Attached to the ARF that you have, you should have 3 separate drafts: a draft 3, a draft 4A, and, well, a draft 3, which includes detail for all of our line items, and then a draft 4A and 4B, which includes a high-level summary of possible changes that we'll discuss today. So draft 3 includes the reduction for the State Department of Assessment and Taxation fees of approximately $485,000. We talked a little bit about that during draft 2. So at draft 3, because of those savings that we realized, we have appropriated an additional $230,000 towards the Board of Education, which is to fund 2 new teachers and 2 new assistants for pre-K. The other changes that are also included in draft 3, but not necessarily changes from draft 2, include county departmental reviews of $150,000, EMS Hancock and CRS Rescue Squad funding of $50,000, a change in county rental income due to a correction that was made of $15,000, county systemic facilities increased $34,000, and then VFRA funding an additional $6,000 based on the comment from Commissioner Kiefer. So that is our proposed draft 3. Like I said, we also have 2 other drafts for you, draft 4A and 4B. So we will talk about those for operating first and then capital to follow. Draft 4.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
There was at least 3 EMS companies that yielded not to take money. Could you explain how that happened and why Hancock and CRS are selected for that?
Sure.
For the public to know, because they did make a very gracious offer in the past to help, correct?
I know that the reason they did not take the subsidy before is because the fire plan that was in place, I think the fire plan was supposed to pay for these. You look like you want to jump in.
I believe there's a phase one, and what you're referring to is $25,000 per each under a phase one, which I'm not detail familiar with, but apparently under that phase one, the agreement was that each of the three rescue companies would get $25,000. When approached, the two companies listed here did wish to take the county up on that under what was phase one. The third desired not to be held to the 5% call rate or 5% response rate. Yes, that was my understanding. So, and
They actually were very gracious by not accepting it, and now they're getting that funding back. Would that be a simplified way of saying that?
It's new funding, so not necessarily getting it back, but are getting what was previously discussed under the fire plan.
Yeah, this is new for each one of the.
Yeah, I just want to attribute their willingness to help at that time. Is what I'm really trying to recognize.
Yep.
Thank you.
Definitely. Okay, so any questions actually right now for draft 3 that was just discussed? Very minor change. The one notable of the $230,000 for pre-K.
I guess I just have a question on that there. Why would we be telling the board what they have to spend that money on?
That is the cost for the pre-K teachers. So the idea was, it's an appropriation, so they honestly can spend it however they wish. The amount of the $230 was derived from the cost of the teachers to fund the pre-K program.
Some time ago, pre-K was an initiative that the Board of Ed seemed to be interested in. In discussion with the superintendent, this was one of the dollar values that was brought forward for 2 pre-K, and one that seemed that it could be afforded. But to answer your question very simply, don't have to at all. It can be simply what they determine it to be.
So in their request to be fully funded, the pre-K and the 2 teachers and the 2 new assistants were already incorporated into the request if we were to fully fund?
The fully funded, I think they had about $1 million in request over maintenance of effort. Is that what you're talking about right now?
I'm saying if we were to fully fund the Board of Education's request, their request would also include that they would be moving forward with the pre-K and the new teachers, et cetera.
Yes.
That was my question.
Yeah, and I have another question. You mentioned we had a savings from the state tax assessment office. So what was the dollar amount?
$485,000.
Is there good apprehension that's going to repeat every year?
The savings for that was because they actually had almost doubled their fees. So for FY19, we saw a large increase for the SDAT fees of almost $1 million. And
we hope that continues.
So yes, it did not. When Comptroller was in on Friday and the comments were made, there was no mention of a potential increase, fortunately. So it is difficult to what will happen year to year, obviously, but there doesn't seem to be any foreshadowing that this will go up the way it was anticipated to go up this year.
Okay. So we are taking 230, suggesting an offer to the Board of Education. Then we're taking 150,000 of that savings for our county department review. Is that correct?
You are correct.
Okay. The other week, I asked a question and gave you time to get it. What is the determining criteria to determine who's next, and has that been resolved?
Staff has definitely been working a team together, and I think it's going to be presented this afternoon, if I'm correct.
That's okay,
a proposal for you to listen.
That was just one of the questions, and the criteria for what department and how people will be selected will be presented today. Good, thank you.
And then that $230,000 for the Board of Education, that goes, if we approve it, that goes to the board, and they can spend that money where they.
Yes, sir. Okay. So as discussed, staff went and took a hard look at what it would mean to the county to provide additional funds over and above that $230,000 to the Board of Ed. So that premise is what governs draft 4A and 4B. So draft 4A shows the option of increasing the appropriation by an additional $270,000. So that 270 plus the 230 would be a $500,000 increase over the maintenance of effort. Hopefully you have in front of you page 2 of 3 so that you can follow along with what I'm discussing now for the draft 4A operating. And basically what staff has provided is a listing of increases that are included in the FY19 budget for your review to see if additional funding would be offered to the Board of Ed, what that would mean for county departments. $872,000 or approximately that is provided before you, and in order to increase Board of Ed funding to $500,000 or an amount of $270,000 over the $230,000 already in draft 3, it would mean a 31% of that $870,000 would need to be removed from other departments and reallocated to the Board of Ed. Rob, would you like me to read through those areas or not necessary?
Unless there's any questions, I think that's fine. So what we tried to do is provide you tier levels of potential, what the savings or what would have to be reduced to make up an additional 270, and then under draft 4B, what would have to be reduced to make up an additional $1 million. I'm sorry, to make up an additional 730 to get to $1 million. So draft 4A represents 31% reduction in those other budgets. Draft B represents a 88% reduction in those other budgets. Some of the questions that staff has received are, tell us what other budgets are required to make such that the board can't make the full $1 million request. So if you look at the table, either under 4A or 4B, you'll see that those are the other budgets. They are overtime for judicial, overtime for sheriff's office, public safety personnel, cadet program, volunteer fire rescue adjustment, highway appropriation for snow removal. We've actually looked at down to where there is any potential for cost savings, highway snow removal. That's the level to which we've gone to. Roof and electrical projects. This is for some county buildings which do have, for instance, the MLK building, which does have youth in that building for day programs. We'd like to get those fixed up and up to par. Animal control, as you can see those numbers, and the library. So these are a listing to answer that question of what would be required to increase the dollar value further beyond the 230. And I think it was in wasn't any more than 3 or 4 weeks ago, we received this information from SDAT, or from the state to the SDAT. So had this not happened from SDAT, staff had programmed the extra money we were told was going to be required. Had this not happened, we wouldn't even be looking at these potential increases that we're talking about. That's the only reason this has happened.
Correct.
Or been able to happen.
Sure. Okay. If there are no questions or comments on 4A and 4B, if you look on page 3 of 3, we can talk about the capital. So on the capital side, $204,000.
I do have a question. Okay, based on the 31% of total and the 88% of total numbers, well, actually, let's go back. Let's just go back to what on the totals. Okay, say for an example, the judicial, the overtime. If they don't use $48,000 worth of overtime, what happens to the remaining money?
It goes into the general fund balance, and it can be used for our 17% that we need to maintain for our reserves, or for other reasons to fund capital projects or anything the board determines.
What are they using on the average for overtime? Would they use the whole 48,000? Is that what you're thinking?
There was a substantiated request for that, so let me grab that.
Do we have last year's numbers for all of those? I guess of the 800, and I'm just going to use the 872,000 there. So if we weren't to use all of that money, say it was only half of it was used, and I don't know what would be used, why couldn't that remaining money go to the Board of Education?
Well, there's no way to determine that. It's not that it couldn't. There's no way to determine that up front for the
I
budget.
understand that. Yeah.
Right.
Huh? Yeah. That was just a thought that just came to me.
Okay. Some of those items are appropriations to outside entities, so of course there would not be any savings there. And just to answer your question regarding the sheriff judicial, the reason for the requested increase was that the overtime budget at midpoint of FY18 is already at 98% expended. Much of this is attributed to the increased number of judges holding court well into evening hours. Major criminal cases such as murder trial may take as much as a week, and there have been an increase in number of evening meetings at the courthouse and the county administration building that require their services. So they are already at 98%, and probably now, if we would look, probably past 100%, I would guess, for their operating budget. So we as staff do look very closely at the requests and where they are now to try to find savings for the county prior to bringing it to the board.
And what's presented here is like for a operating draft, overtime previously approved for judicial, 48,670. That's additional overtime funds being requested, or does that include, just so I'm clear, does that include what we're already expending?
That's additional over last year's budget. So right now that we're at 98 or 100% already, we can imagine they're going to be going over budget this year. Okay. So to foresee for next year. Rather than paying the additional overtime, if it's over 100,000 combined, would it make sense? Maybe this is a question for the sheriff. Would an additional deputy bring that overtime rate down? Would that be beneficial? I definitely think that is a question for the sheriff. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
To answer your question further, President Baker, about costs that can come in under, for instance, snow removal, those costs can also, or overtime, can also come in quite a bit over. So there's,
and in the past,
as Sarah pointed out, they don't just rely upon these numbers submitted, and this being the first full budget cycle, being up close and personal with this, it's very encouraging, instills confidence in the system that staff has in place, that they actually do look at, okay, they're asking for more this year. What did they use last year? And is it substantiated by last year's use or the current year's use? So as she pointed out, they were close to, or probably over now 100%. So these are pretty well-founded numbers from pretty well-vetted numbers.
Yes. Okay. So moving on from operating, the baseline draft 3 for capital includes the $204,000 that we talked about in draft 2 for the school vestibules. Also in draft 3 of capital, consideration for the joint site location for the recreational facility and the police, fire, and emergency services training facility. That's been taken out of the description, so it's now being considered in 2 different areas. For capital draft 4A, this option shows an additional $1 million to fund Washington County Public School vestibule improvements and wall construction in open classroom schools. And the hope is that this would be able to be funded with future project savings. So, and you can see the period for this is FY19 to FY21, so that $1 million would span the 3-year period.
That's related to the savings that Jonathan Hager for 800,000?
Um,
Be similar to
that
that?
800 is similar for a similar reason, but that 800,000, was definitely already redirected. So these
school
are separate and
savings.
additional funds. Yeah.
Yeah, this is over and above, and the other key difference, Commissioner, is that those were Board of Education savings under the board CIP, where we're actually looking to take savings from the Board of County Commissioners CIP, which is administered by staff here, and move those savings over to the Board of Ed's CIP. So we're looking to increase the board expenditure for board capital. The capital side, as you can see, we have a little bit more flexibility and latitude in that we tend to see savings in our capital projects. Some go overboard, but we can anticipate that there will be savings. So this is encouraging, and being in the task force, two of our commissioners here, Commissioner Barr and Commissioner Kiefer, are in the task force. We will be meeting again tomorrow and bringing forward to the joint meeting next Tuesday afternoon recommendations. And it is a thought that we will approach that for a dollar value for use, and one of those being that vestibules and so forth, trying to get all schools on par so that no school is, if not this year, eventually, so that no school is different in its layout and approach, like the one at Fountaindale when you went into today. I believe that was an updated vestibule. Much, you can see the safety improvement with that. So
You mentioned we have a joint meeting.
next Tuesday afternoon, yes.
So for the capital draft 4B, very similar as 4A, it's to fund the same items, but the amount has increased from $1 million over the 3-year period to $2.5 million over a 4-year period. And that would include savings from current projects, but also reduction in current CIP projects that we have if the board wanted to go that route. So there would be additional reductions that would need to be made in the CIP plan. So today, I'm coming to you. I have these 3 options: draft 3, draft 4A, draft 4B. We've talked about a number of items here. Looking for direction from the board if I should be able to move forward with draft 3 or one of the other drafts or a combination thereof.
So when you do the Board of Ed's request on their operation, so currently we are at what percentage of their request?
We are at 99.17% of their request.
99.1?
99.17. Let's call it 99.2.
On your point
But
of
it's
view.
not. Okay, so if we come, and then what, on their capital side, what percent of the request have we approved for capital for the Board of Ed?
I'd like to refer you back to the first page, one of 3, and show that on the capital side,
Where I'm
we've
going with this, my final question is going to be, when you combine the 2, operating and capital for the Board of Ed, if we have additional capital, how do we tie that in to say that we've supported 100%? I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. From my memory, I think the Board of Ed submits quite a large figure for capital maintenance cost every year. So I'm not sure that methodology would be the most appropriate in this situation, definitely for operating. For capital, I can assure you that we are funding them. We funded them the $4 million in local funds to support their state, and then the additional $204,000. Yes.
To give a quantitative answer to that, the proposed budget, and this is in your budget update, the proposed budget will also increase capital appropriations to the BOE by $1.9 million in FY 2019 and by $1.5 million in FY 2020 from last year's projection. So if you looked at our current budget and looked at the projections for FY 2019, This budget that is being proposed shows 1.9 million more, and even in 2020 shows 1.5 million more than that. And then over the next 9 years cumulatively, it shows over $3 million more. And what we've done is taken at least $4 million in capital each year to the Board of Ed so they can reap the state funding at 27% match. We don't leave any money on the table at the state level so that Washington County Board of Ed gets all of that for systemic improvements in capital projects.
So we've left money on the table in years past.
Yes.
Yes, we have.
Yes.
And that's coming to an end. That won't happen again, provided we can afford in the budget to do that. We've already changed that. Even in your first draft, that was already changed. Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments?
Should I expect an approval to move forward to public hearing with draft 3 as presented? Or not at this time?
And there are time frames up to a minimum of 7 days, which you have to have it publicly posted, which means you have to have it roughly 14 days, the information in place so that you can publish it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Can you remind me, what's the process for making changes even after the budget hearing? Because I recall last year at our budget hearing, we heard some concerns about a few projects, and I do believe we changed. I think, for example, the Board of Elections site was an issue that was brought up last time, and we made an adjustment. So an approval today doesn't set this in stone. It still provides an opportunity for citizen comment and adjustments if needed.
Yes, all an approval today does is give us the go-ahead to start preparing our documents for the public hearing, because we will want to present a balanced budget at the public hearing. We'll want to include everything that the commissioners want us to have in there, and then, of course, there can be additional changes at as a result of the public hearing.
Tweaks, not significant changes, though,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
I guess what Commissioner Baker and I are sharing, I will share for everybody. We just want to know, why would we want a consensus today and not wait until next week when we have the school board? We are a team. So would we not want to wait and hear their input on these different plans than saying today this is what we want and negotiate? Shouldn't we? I'm just throwing that out as a suggestion.
Actually, that would work fine, because that gives you 14 days, which is the very latest point at which you could get this together. But certainly wanted you to hear it today and wanted you to have the opportunity to weigh in, ask any questions. At least we have some framework for what the options are.
So our joint meeting will be before we vote to move forward to public hearing.
We can install this last on next week's agenda. Yeah, so it's absolutely clear.
I would agree with that, because I think a major component of budget might be some school safety initiatives, and the committee will present next week as well, so that might, that might be a big change, not just a tweak.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein.
Thank you, sir, for helping. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Flow Transfer Agreement Construction Reserve Fund, Mr. Bradshaw.
I guess it's afternoon now, so good afternoon. What I have here before you today, back in 2003, the county and the city entered into a flow transfer agreement. And the way it works is the county accepted some flow from one of their pump stations. In return, the city would provide flow, except county residents flow in different areas where we did not have our collection system. A part of this flow transfer agreement created what was called the Construction Reserve Fund, where $300 was added on to every permit allocation that we sold. And the money was to be put into a pot, and then the city and county could agree upon a mutual project that would benefit both of us, and the money would be spent on that. There was a clause in there that stated that if a project was not agreed upon after 10 years, the money could be split equally between the two parties. And like I said, this was done in 2003, so now we're 15 years later. We've never been able to agree upon a project, so we have decided that we wish to just close the construction reserve fund, split the money equally between us and the city. Our portion of the funds we asked to be put into one of our capital projects called LIN 040, which is the collection system rehab, which we then would use to do I&I work. Probably one of the areas we'd concentrate on would be the Morgansville area. So I have a motion here before you to move to close the construction reserve fund, divide the funds equally between the city and county. And the county's portion of the funds would be transferred into LIN 040, which is the collection system rehab account, CIP project. And I did talk to Mike Spiker at the city, and he is also in concurrence just to go ahead and close the fund out at this time and give them their portions of the funds.
And then would the city have to, is the money earmarked for that type of project, or is?
The city could use their half to do whatever they chose.
Did you give the amounts on that?
Currently, the fund at the end of March had $641,860.04 in it, but it is an interest-bearing account, so it may have went up a few dollars between the time I wrote
That
this.
amount the city will receive.
They will receive 50% of it. Okay. And we will receive 50%.
I'd like to ask John, with this agreement in front of us, if this was executed by the mayor at the time, would it be appropriate that there's some meeting of the minds with the mayor, or is that not necessary under this agreement?
It's probably not necessary. I mean, the terms of the agreement are what they are. I mean, it provides in the agreement for what Mark has presented. I don't know if it's going to go. Mark and I talked about this, and we decided that we would bring it to our board, so you would be aware of it and ask for your concurrence on that. The city probably doesn't need to happen on the city side if they don't want it to happen, but I think that, and obviously we would just be executing the terms of the existing agreement already, so I think we can take that money. The county's holding that money right now, right?
Correct.
The county's holding that money. We can send that to the city. If you want to, obviously we've talked to staff. If you want staff to address it with council, mayor and council before we actually take that action, we could do that, but I think we're doing on our end what we wanted to do. We wanted to make the board aware and have you make the final decision from the county perspective.
I just want to make sure the mayor and council are aware of what we're discussing here.
And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, obviously, Mark's been working with staff. Again,
Did you send all of this information to each mayor, the mayor and each council member?
No, I've been dealing with Mr.
Could you?
Spiker, and I don't know if he contacted his mayor and council or not.
I mean, we could go back and ask Mike to bring this to the attention of the mayor and council and get their position on that. I mean, I don't think it needs to happen today, obviously, unless it does. Maybe I shouldn't speak for you on that. Is this something that needs to happen now, or can we wait?
We've had the county for 15 years. What's nothing to do?
Right. I mean, again, obviously, this is what staff wanted to bring it to the board's attention and have the board
Probably
make a final
good that
decision on
our
this.
board knows first, yes,
Right.
as presented
That's what we
here,
wanted to do.
before any discussions.
Can we provide all of this information to the mayor and each council member immediately, and then just for their information?
Yes.
And then
It may be helpful for their budgeting process.
Yes.
Right, so they would know there was coming.
Made aware of it, and then we could either vote on this today or bring it back after the mayor and council review the information.
We even have, commissioners, there's been a requested joint session meeting, so there's an opportunity where we can have this as an agenda item there.
So. Okay, welcome to everyone. This time we'd like to take up the deliberation consensus decision on application for zoning map amendment RZ 17-003, Downsville Pike Land LLC. And I'd like to ask Mr. Travis Allen to come forward and give us our information. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good.
My name is Travis Allen. I'm a comprehensive planner with the Department of Planning and Zoning. This is piecemeal rezoning case RZ 17-03 on the agenda to reach a consensus decision. It's a request from Downsville Pike Land, LLC, to rezone 2 parcels of land that total 1.6 acres from the current RS, or residential suburban zoning, to the HI, or Highway Interchange District. The Planning Commission held its public information meeting on September 25th, and the Planning Commission did recommend for approval at the regular meeting on October 2nd. The Board of County Commissioners held the public hearing on December 12th. The public comment period was closed at the conclusion of that hearing. So far, there has been, to my knowledge, 6 public comments on this proposed rezoning case. All of them were related to traffic or safety-related impacts on the adjacent residential neighborhoods or on users of Marty Snook Park. The commissioners were provided all of the written documentation related to the case prior to the public hearing, and that same information is attached to the agenda for today's discussion. The applicant in this case has claimed that there was both a mistake in the zoning of the property during the last comprehensive rezoning, which was in 2012 during the urban growth area rezoning, and that there's been a change in the character of the neighborhood in the time since 2012, and has provided evidence to support that claim in the application which they've submitted, which is also in your agenda packet. The application is ready for commissioner action, and I, as well as other members of the Planning and Zoning Department, are here to answer questions if you have them.
Okay, any questions, comments from the commissioners? We've been
In regards to traffic and that sort of thing, is this project, or whatever takes place there, as it moves forward, is it my understanding there'll be traffic studies and a series of other steps in the process that will be required for?
Yes, one of the comments from engineering plan review is that there likely would be a traffic study done. And they mentioned that there's the 500-foot spacing requirement in terms of where a new entrance would be. So they would have to be doing some of that figuring out during the site planning process. Yes.
Who conducts the traffic study, for the record?
Excuse me?
Conducts the traffic study?
I believe that would be, is that SHA, developer? The developer, so in this case, Downsville Pike Land, LLC.
To clarify, I mean, generally the developer hires a traffic engineering professional to perform the study in its behalf.
That's presented to the county or the state or both?
To our staff, and if there's a state road involved, state staff as well.
But that is a state road.
But there's a intersection close enough that it'll probably include both.
That's why I say it.
There'll be 2 traffic studies.
The same study goes to both.
2 roads.
And there's discussion amongst both staff in the review.
That's why I say it will go to both the county and the state.
Yes.
Exactly.
Go to Tim's office. Eve is here. We will ensure that it goes to both staff.
So all we're looking for here today, we're either looking for a vote to approve or deny, or we're looking for a consensus. And I'm okay either way. It doesn't matter to me. So
I'm I'm okay for a consensus to approve based on all these studies as part of the final approval, correct?
I mean, you're looking for a consensus today so the final documents can be prepared.
Okay.
We're going to have to prepare findings of fact to support whatever the consensus is. So once that happens, they'll be prepared, and then final action will be a vote to adopt those findings.
So what we do today has nothing to do with final action.
At least.
It tells us which way to prepare the documents.
Okay, I'll just tell you my position. I oppose it. I don't think that property was ever mistakenly zoned. I think it was, in my opinion, I think the zoning that it has is what it was meant to be. And I rode by there again this morning, and I sat on the Parks Board. I know the Parks Board was very interested in purchasing that piece of property for parkland, and I think when you ride by there and you take a look at that property, I don't think it was I don't think a mistake was made. That's going to be my position. I'm not going to support moving forward today.
1-1. I have consensus to move forward. He's saying
I'm
no.
denying, yep.
Yeah, and that's okay. 1-1, that's why we're here.
If I could remind the commissioners, of course, the factors that are to be considered in the request for a map amendment, which this is, are set forth in section 27.3 of the zoning ordinance. And the commissioners need to consider the report and recommendations of the Planning Commission, population change in the area, the proposed change, the availability of public facilities in the area, present and future transportation patterns in the area, compatibility with existing and proposed development of the area, the relationship of the proposed change to the comprehensive plan and other plan maps and policies, whether there was a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood, whether there was a mistake in the existing zoning classification, and finally, whether there's been a convincing demonstration that the proposed rezoning would be appropriate and logical for the subject property.
I'm of the opinion that we don't move forward in looking at the analysis, in particular the population analysis. That area has increased more so as a residential area, the way I read it and understand it to be. So it's certainly not necessarily a change in the character of the neighborhood in the direction towards commercial in the immediate area surrounding it. It's more residential in my opinion. And certainly it's being adjacent to a park just makes it that much more of a residential neighborhood. So I don't think there was a mistake in the zoning.
Student 2.
Well, there's not a consensus to accept or deny, so at this point, there'll be no action taken. We can reschedule. I mean, there's a commissioner that's not here today. I think he participated in the other discussions, but so right now there's no consensus either way. So it's just no action by the commissioners today. It can be rescheduled at the commissioners' meetings.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bid award PUR 1380 janitorial services for Washington County. Ms. Noggle and Mr. Panisi.
Good afternoon. Unfortunately, Brandy's under the weather. What's that in for you is bid award PUR 1380 janitorial service for Washington County. Recommended motion, move to award the janitorial service contract to responsive bidder under option 1 to P2 Cleaning Services LLC of Laurel, Maryland, for a total amount of $227,612.91 for the annual cost. Also, they provided the labor costs for additional labor and the hourly rate, also for other services. The bid was advertised in the various medias, as you see in the ARF here. We had 25 persons download the bid document. It's a one-year service with 4 one-year options to renew. The fiscal impact for FY19 is given here in the ARF also. We have concurrences from the division director, and that concludes, also the bid tab is attached, and that concludes my recommendation award for PUR 1380.
Any questions, comments? If none, need a motion to move forward as presented. Commissioners?
Low qualified bid, correct?
Any concern as to how far away they are as an organization?
I leave it to John. He did the evaluation.
No concern. They provided us with 7 references. They have some very large accounts, Dulles Airport, the MARC stations. They have accounts in this area as well, so we're comfortable with the distance.
Okay. Vetted them pretty thoroughly.
I say he does have facilities in this area that he is contracted to.
Okay, so he has other contracts in this general location.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Hey, if no other questions, need a motion to move forward as presented.
Motion to move forward.
Second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
5-0. You voted, didn't you, Wayne? Yeah. But it's 4-0. Oh, yeah, 4-0. Sorry about that.
You'll be all right.
John said second a little loud there. I thought that was Commissioner Myers. Sorry about that. Okay, rejection of bids. PUR 1377, the Brumball Kendall Grove Farmstead demolition, Mr. Curry and Mr. Rodnair. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon.
Before you is a rejection bid for PUR 1377. Move to take action was in the best interest of the county to reject all the bids for 1377, which is for the Brumball Kendall Grove Farmstead. The bids came in either over budget or they did not fill out the proper forms that were in the bid packet, and we're asking to re-advertise and re-solicit pricing for this project.
Okay, any questions, comments?
So moved.
I have a motion, a second for the recommended motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Consider reinstatement of the Health Advisory Board of the Board of Health, or to the Board of Health under the auspices of the Washington County Board of County Commissioners, Ms. Rom, who's the chair of EDC, and also Mr. Bockrath, who's the vice chair of the Washington County Economic Development Commission. How are you all today?
Doing well, and yourselves?
And Mr. Stoner and Ms. Lewis.
Hello.
As the commissioners know, the Board of County Commissioners act as the Board of Health for the county under state law, and we're suggesting, or we're recommending, reinstatement also under state law for the Advisory Committee to the Board of Health. The EDC, it was brought to the EDC's attention some months ago that there was confusion in the ranks of the realtor community about what was perceived to be changes in regulations in regards to water and sewer. Mr. Stoner met with the EDC, and that was we were so advised that there weren't changes, but that there but some of the interpretations had changed. And in those conversations and discussions, we realized that it would be, in our opinion, a benefit to the commissioners / Board of Health to have an advisory committee to be able to get citizen input for you in your deliberations, and also to provide additional assistance in your deliberations on health matters. Economic development, I think, is a small part of what a health advisory committee would do. It was only one part of it, and certainly the county has had one as recently as 2010. Why it was dismantled, we're not sure, but we believe it would be appropriate to reauthorize and reconstitute that board to assist. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Were you the health officer at that time?
Correct. I can actually, if I have a minute. We had very, very low engagement. The last meeting was in 2012, and we had one regular attendee. And at the time, I had a conversation with the previous county administrator, and it was determined at that time to basically sort of like let it go. He and I had regular contact. I was keeping him updated on stuff. And obviously, the authoritative board of health is the commissioners anyway. So he was to act as the conduit between the health department and myself and you guys as the Board of Health / county commissioners. Frankly, it was very, very difficult to keep people engaged. We actually went for about 5 or 6 years with significantly low involvement. 1, 2, 3 people at the most of the time. So it, for lack of a better phrase, it was kind of a waste of time for people to, take out of their day, out of their organization and come over. I'm not opposed to reinitiating it. I think that a good point was brought up in that if this is a direction that we're going to move in, that it is the health department in total. It's not just environmental health or land use issues. There's, that's a small portion of what the health department does. And if that really is a concern, I would even suggest from the land use perspective that we potentially have an ad hoc type committee or process where the health department, the county, the Maryland Department of Environment, and other interested stakeholders get together. We actually just did that with the Home Builders Association. We had about a 3-month process where, as Gary brought up, some of the interpretations of the regulations were in the past loosely interpreted, and MDE basically told me that you need to start dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and so a lot of our flexibility went away. And so that was brought to our attention. We got all those groups together, and I don't know that we finalized it, but literally as we speak, it's probably a process is being finalized to move things forward, because it was an impediment. But my suggestion would be, out of concern that as the health officer, if we do it, we've got to look at it as a whole, not just from a land use perspective. But again, if that's not the direction and there's still a desire, because, environmental health issues are probably the most visible that we deal with. If there is that desire, if we don't move in this direction, we are more than happy, and the Maryland Department of Environment, I've already spoken to them, they're more than happy to meet regularly with the EDC, with other stakeholders involved. So, but I'm not opposed to either way that we go.
Yeah, and we really do believe that it's, again, economic development is only a small part of the solution. I mean, when we had our joint meeting in February, just, you think about what has changed in 6 years, 8 years, the opioid crisis and other matters that may come forward through this group. We would certainly recommend not reconstituting or at least I personally recommend not reconstituting the advisory group the way it was before. I think the bylaws called for 15 members, and I think it would be difficult to get 15 active members. but we would be, the EDC would be willing to spearhead the discussion to fine-tune the bylaws, make recommendations to the commissioners as who should be involved on a broad base for matters not only inside but outside of economic development. Michael Reka, who works with Meredith, is on our board and would be a huge asset in helping us to understand what the appropriate level of commitment, the appropriate time constraints, the skill sets, and the cross-section in the community. So we would be happy to lead that effort for the commissioners, and with working with Earl, of course.
Yeah, and I would, my only concern with that approach is that, and I mean, I'm not a lawyer or anything. I don't even play one on TV. But would be that you would potentially have a stakeholder group leading a process to establish processes and bylaws that are potentially regulatory in nature, so it could potentially be a conflict of interest. I certainly am more than happy to work with members of the EDC, but if we had the EDC itself or an offshoot of the EDC, it could be construed as a stakeholder group establishing a process that goes to, in essence, an authoritative body for the health department. Maybe, maybe not. That's a concern. That'd be a concern of mine.
I'm not too concerned about that, frankly, because if you look at the old bylaws really only say that there are 15 members, they meet, they have an election in October. They're really pretty broad-based, and so certainly we don't have any experts, nor would we try to be changing anything of a regulatory nature. It's just really going out to try to find the right people who would be engaged. And I think, and to Earl's point, this is the first time we heard that he had a hard time having a fully engaged advisory board, and frankly, that's the key, is to find the right people. And if we can't find the right people who are going to be, actively involved with it, then I would say that, we would report back to you that says there's no interest in the community. But I think the need is there. We think the interest is there, and it certainly would behoove us and Earl and staff to find the right parties who would be fully engaged and take this role seriously.
So if we were to support the reinstatement of the board, then you're going to follow the old bylaws?
Well, I mean, we can take a look at the old bylaws. The old bylaws really,
the question, how will the new bylaws be established?
Yeah, well, I think we'd have to bring them to you, or.
Well, what my question is, why wouldn't, and thank you for wanting to take the lead, so don't think this is a criticism, but why wouldn't Stephanie Stone, Director of Health and Human Service, be the lead organization working on this? Because that is her title, Health and Human Services.
I would be happy to have someone else lead it, but in absent anyone else standing up to the plate to do it, we would be willing to take that lead. But if somebody else, if you, staff, Earl, feels there's another party that can do it, we'll work with them to help make it happen and let them take the lead.
Maybe another alternative might be, this is something that we discussed with our diversity board. Maybe start out with a generic, basic bylaw structure. Give the new board a chance to get a feel for what the responsibilities are of them, what the mission of the health department is, because it's pretty diverse, as you mentioned, everything from septic permits to actual immunizations and clinics like that. So the drug epidemic, teen pregnancy, you deal with a lot. So maybe to start out basic and see what it might grow into might be another opportunity, another avenue to look at.
It's pretty basic. Frankly, if we were going to change anything, I would say all you have to do is change membership shall consist of 15 voting members, and perhaps make it a little less, make it a smaller, more compact, more agile body that of people that are going to be engaged.
Just to interject in the flow of things, those bylaws have been provided by the county clerk, and we have reviewed them by the EDC and others. And that was exactly the premise, was to get started under the current, because they weren't too far out of line, I don't believe. And then if adjustment was needed, I think exactly what you said, if adjustment was needed in today's day and age, since it's last been active then that group may suit to make those adjustments or bring those recommendations to you. Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Because your responsibilities are so diverse, anyone who might be interested in serving on the board, what kind of backgrounds do you think might be helpful? Individuals with certain experiences that...
Honestly, because we are so diverse,
anything
you're really looking for anything. I mean, you're looking for, we have involvement with DSS, with social issues. We have involvement with law enforcement. We've got involvement really with every aspect of the community. So it would be really important to have those entities represented. But just from general citizenry, they're the people, birth certificates. Really, at some point in time in everyone's life, we affect them. So really as diverse as possible. Okay. One of the other things I would add just real quickly is that technically the Board of Health is supposed to meet per COMAR like twice a year. And I know we've shied away from that in years, over the years, but just from a technical perspective. Yeah. So that's also an opportunity for us to update and get
And Earl, I would encourage you to bring that forward as don't let us slip on that subject again, please. So I think that's something that is our obligation to do. So please encourage us to do that.
Okay.
And EDC is willing to assist, but by all means, if you feel that this is something Earl should be formatting, our goal today was simply to get this board reinstated.
Because we believe the citizen input or the opportunity for citizen input is very important.
I agree with you. Okay, if there are no other comments, questions, let's decide what we want to do with the recommendation.
I'm in favor.
Or let's move forward.
Motion?
Making a motion to reinstate the Health Advisory Board.
And I'll second it, and I also add that I think if you check with Maryland Association of Counties, many of our counterparts across the state has not only a Board of Health, but a very active Board of Health. I've heard my comrades at MACO talk about it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 4-0. Thank you very much. Good luck. Medical supply agreement, Mr. Chisholm and Mr. Hayes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Very good.
We're coming before you today to ask for your approval to sign a agreement with Meritus Medical Center for the purchase of medical supplies that we use to supply both EMS supplies and pharmaceuticals to the ambulance and fire companies throughout the county. We've been doing this now for a while, but we'd like to get that approved in writing to maintain our excellent working relationship with the hospital.
Okay. Only question I have, under these agreements, say Meritus Medical Center, what happens if they're ever sold? The agreements continue with the new owner?
Generically, we haven't had a written or formalized agreement, and we've never had to cross that bridge. If you remember back, I don't know the years ago, but the previous Washington County Hospital became Meritus Medical Center when they moved out, and then they've merged with the Western Maryland?
Tri-Virgin.
Yeah, Tri-Virgin. So the agreements have carried over, and if there's any formality to that, it may be something we have to come back and exercise corrected agreements that would be applicable to the appropriate entities that are at the top of that. But I don't think it would change the understanding or the functionality of the agreement in that transition period.
Just ask. Okay, any other questions, comments?
I think it's a great partnership. I've been on some ride-alongs with EMS companies, and it's very convenient for them. They drop off a patient, get them checked in, and they have that kiosk right there. They can pick up the IVs, blankets, whatever they might need, and they're ready to go for the next call. So.
Any other questions, comments? If none, a motion to approve the recommended motion.
Moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hagerstown Urban Improvement Project Grant Agreement and Subrecipient Agreement, review and approval. Ms. Buchanan, how are you this afternoon?
Good afternoon, everyone. As stated, Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. I'm here this afternoon requesting a motion to approve the presented subrecipient agreements for execution by the Maryland Theater Association Incorporated for consideration and formal approval by their board. Allow for non-substantive modifications to the subrecipient agreements with the concurrence of the county attorney, and upon execution of the subrecipient agreements, approve execution of 2 fiscal year 2018 capital projects grant agreements between the state of Maryland, the county, and the Maryland Theater Association. In 2017, the Hagerstown Urban Improvement Project received 2 Maryland Capital Bond Bill Awards, one in the amount of $155,000 and the other in the amount of $45,000. The bond bill language designated Washington County as the grantee and the city of Hagerstown as the beneficiary on both bond bills. As the grantee, the county is responsible to draft and enter into a subrecipient agreement with the beneficiary. Those subrecipient agreements were presented to this board on February 6, 2018, and approved for submission to the city of Hagerstown for their review and execution. During a meeting held on March 12, 2018, attended by Senator Serafini, staff from both the city and the county, and staff from the Maryland Department of General Services and Department of Budget and Management, a decision was made to remove the city of Hagerstown as the beneficiary and replace them with the Maryland Theater Association as was originally intended. The subrecipient agreement primarily serves as a means to detail agreed upon financial considerations as well as the obligations associated with receipt of such funding. The entire agreement is contingent upon the receipt of funding from the state, and the document details specific reporting procedures and remedies available to the county in case of default of the agreement. Most importantly, the document incorporates the capital bond bill agreement into the subrecipient agreement and holds the beneficiary responsible to the same conditions and requirements that the county is held responsible for. It also serves to limit the county's risk in case of fiscal recovery by the state. Upon execution of the subrecipient agreements, the county and the beneficiary must agree to execute the capital bond bill grant agreement and to receive awarded funding. Should any substantial changes be made after the approval of this, we'll bring it before this board again for your approval. Any questions or comments?
Okay, any questions, comments? If none, I did have a question. So back there it said that we're not going to be responsible for repayment of any bonds. Is that what I read?
For the grant agreement associated with it, when you have a grant agreement, the grantee is ultimately responsible if any of the grant funds are not used for what their intent was. If they would find an unallowable cost, we would be initially responsible, but when you have a subrecipient agreement, it protects us because then that is passed along to the subrecipient agreement. They would then need to reimburse us for any fiscal loss.
That was my question.
In this case, the Maryland Theater, anytime you sign a subrecipient agreement, in this case, the Maryland Theater, they're obligated, any obligations we have under the initial grant agreement, they're going to have to us. So for some reason something happens, they're obligated to. That's why we incorporate the grant agreement into this agreement. So any obligations the county has, they have them as well, because that's where the money's going to end up. So.
Yes.
And for clarification, commissioners, the reason that we are heavily involved in the procurement, the inspections, and so forth is to see that we do meet those grant criteria first and do everything we can with the Maryland Theater to receive those reimbursements. So.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If none, need a motion to move forward.
Motion to move forward.
Second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Contract award PUR 1376, independent auditing services. Mr. Curry. Ms. Edlin. How are you two this afternoon?
Good afternoon. Before you is contract award PUR 1376, independent auditing services. Recommended motion, move to award the contract for independent auditing services for fiscal years 2018 through 2022 to responsible incumbent proposer, SB and Company LLC of Hunt Valley, Maryland, with the lowest total sum and the price of $366,500 even. We had 44 persons download the document. We received 6 proposals. We reviewed all 6. We opened up 4 proposals, and the coordinating committee recommend that we award to SB Company LLC. And you can see the fiscal FY18 budget for this year, and also the funding that we'll be paying for the services. And also there's a bid tab showing the pricing from all the proposals that were opened, and also for prices from years 2018 through 2022.
Any questions, comments, commissioners? Motion to move forward, to approve.
Motion to move forward.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, position review procedures, Ms. Stone, Ms. Payton, and Ms. Greaves. How are you all this afternoon?
Hello, I'm Stephanie Stone. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services for the county.
I'm Deb Payton. I'm the Deputy Director of Human Resources.
Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer.
We are here today for informational purposes only. On April 10th, 2018, staff presented to the board and staff the completed wage and salary scale study for Washington County. As recommended by the study and reported to the board, staff has begun the planning of position reviews for all county departments. As the first step in this process, a position review team was chosen to conduct the position reviews. The makeup of that team was determined by leadership to be the Chief Operations Officer, that'd be Jim Hovis, Chief Financial Officer, that would be Sarah, the Director of Health and Human Services, myself, and Deputy Director of Human Resources, Debbie. On April 13th, 2018, the team met for the first time to plan for this process. The team will meet as frequently as necessary to carry out its charge in an efficient and expeditious manner, and will provide the board with periodic updates of the progress of the team. The review team discussed various review procedures and scheduling options. The chief consideration was efficiency, expediency, and equity among all departments. Bearing this in mind and subject to approval and amendment by the board, it is the recommendation of the team that the review procedures be as follows. Number 1, a memorandum will be sent to all division directors and department heads requesting the submission of a position review form and supporting documentation for each position in which they feel an inequity or anomaly exists and further review is warranted. May 14th, 2018 will be the deadline for all position review submissions. In addition to the submissions from staff, the team will utilize the salary study, assessment tools, and job descriptions as part of its review. The team will consider all requests for review submitted by staff. In addition, the team will thoroughly review any position in which an inequity or anomaly exists based on the available resources. Number 4, after an initial review, the division director, department head, or their designees will be contacted and given an appointment to meet with the team to explain and articulate their request and to answer questions in relation to the position. 5, once the requests have been thoroughly reviewed, the team will rank the request based on 3 equally weighted criteria, which are level of inequity, justification of inequity, salary position score. The salary position score will be determined utilizing a published tool for the purpose. The scores will be tabulated, averaged, and the position will be ranked according to the highest score. 6, the positions will be considered for adjustment by order of ranking and within the confines of the available budget. 7, once all positions have been reviewed and considered, a first draft report will be presented to the board for review and comment by the first or second week of June. The fiscal impact. Fiscal impact will be limited to the available budget. At this time, an amount of $400,000 exists in the fiscal year 2019 operating budget to address the review findings. Okay, any questions?
Any questions, comments, commissioners? Okay, as they stated, that was for information.
Just explain how the $400,000 got there so we know it's in the budget for that.
Sure.
If I may, back in November of 2017, $250,000 was approved in the budget, and just recently with SSTAT savings, $486,000, $150,000 additional was posted because of the concerns of potential to readdress salary study. I do want to point out that this is a belt and suspenders approach to the salary study. This is the suspenders, so to speak, to take yet another look of anything that might have been missed by a consultant, which we all know consultants can miss information. And I'm very grateful to the board that you've entrusted staff, a team of leaders here, to take yet another look at this. I'd also like to remind everyone that back in November of 2017, there was an employee investment plan, the first of its kind, which the Board of County Commissioners approved team recognition, employee investments, 4 different aspects, which is about to, has actually been addressed to all senior staff and is now available to staff.
Correct.
So that's been a great deal of work by Human Resources. I'd like to also bring to the attention that from July to July, that has been a 10% increase in wage. So this is very much a belt and suspenders approach to be certain that anything of inequity or abnormality is addressed and caught. And I think it's a completely fair and decent approach. I appreciate the Board of County Commissioners supporting this approach, if indeed you do support it.
Okay.
In addition, we have a component to the position review process that's part of the Emergency Communications Center action plan. And I'd like to bring Dave Hayes up to speak to that specifics of the action plan. Dave?
Good afternoon, David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Dave, if I can interrupt a minute, there are copies of the plan in which Dave's speaking of on the table here to the audience's left if you'd like to review. Thank you, Dave.
So I'll try to keep this brief, but the highlights that we wanted to bring forward here, staff have been working aggressively in some cases over the last year, but more specifically in the last 3 to 6 months, to develop plans and steps that would improve and in some cases change some of the working conditions in the Emergency Communications Center. There are 7 steps that you have before you here that are highlighted out in the Emergency Actions Plan. They go down the range from eliminating the 18-hour scheduled work shifts in consultation with the 12-hour work shift that is a standard work schedule for the bulk of the Emergency Communications Center. We've identified the need to produce and work on career path identifications and things that would enhance the employees' forward progress once they're hired as a county employee. Currently, there are only two grades that are available to them once they come in as emergency communications specialists. We're looking at ways to further expand that ability and move that forward. We're grateful that we're looking forward to 2 positions that are being brought forward in the FY19 budget, and we're understanding of some of the restrictions and why it may only be 2 instead of 4. And our intent is to take those 2 positions and work with the existing structures to further enhance regularly scheduled breaks and add depth in the workflow and work processes. We looked at our training initiatives and how we're bringing new hires in. We've also looked at our training initiatives for our existing employees to some degree and into varying degrees of tenure. That may be the employee that's been there for 1 to 2 years, or the employee that's been there for 10 to 20. And we want to make sure that there are ample training opportunities and structured training programs that give them the opportunity to be successful in all things that they do. Going forward, we're also intending on sending out a survey to all staff within the ECC, soliciting input and satisfaction with the current 12-hour schedule, and also a question, do they prefer, now that they've been on that 12-hour schedule for upwards of 12 months or more, would they prefer to look at an alternate schedule to include the previous 8-hour schedule? So we're going to look for staff feedback in all these initiatives and trying to promote a positive work environment. And then the 7th component to all of this is, as we work to in place scheduled and regularly scheduled breaks for those working the 12 hours, is actually to create an environment that allows them to take that break and utilize that effectively, and that would be an expanded break room / lounge area where they can actually go deconflict, decompress, and get themselves ready to go back and assume their responsibilities as emergency communications specialists. We've identified an area within the 2nd floor of the ECC that can accommodate that, and we're hopeful as we bring this plan forward that it gains your endorsement. We can formalize this. We can look and work with HR and the Office of Budget and Finance to look at the financial applicability of it, understanding that there are certain limitations as far as the financial abilities of where we can be in some of these. But at this point, we've not been able to work through that fiscal analysis at this point. But our intent is to aggressively look at this up through the next week to 14 days, and this will be something that marries into the phase 2 of the salary study, and hopefully from our department's review, we can incorporate that right into the end results of the salary study. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
I do.
Where we at?
Thank you for asking. It was, I think 3 of us were quoted in the newspaper that we would support up to 4 call takers. But right now, 2, combined with this plan, is in order to keep those folks motivated and reduce the need for the additional 2 by putting them on a path to a career and higher pay by using these benchmarks.
Yep. And all senior leadership's position at this point is let's move the 2 positions forward, because that is included in the budget at this point and won't require additional budgetary review. Let's move those forward. Let's put initiatives for the existing employees so that we're not just adding staff, we're actually taking a holistic approach. We're looking at all the areas of the communications center and all the things that affect any given day there. And while additional personnel are certainly warranted and needed, so is a review and the application to the existing staff and the training programs that are there. So our approach with agreement from the county administrator is to utilize the 2 positions going forward and continue to evaluate that, look at the impact of those positions, look at the impact of regularly scheduled breaks. Let's get feedback from the staff. Do they want to still be on the 12-hour shift? Would they prefer an alternative, and what those fiscal impacts are? Because some of those things could produce additional financial obligations that the county would have to consider. So I think the plan that we've got here, at least conceptually, is the right way forward at this point. It looks at a bunch of issues instead of just a single issue. So I'm comfortable with this at this stage, and I'd advocate that we've done a lot of work, and let's exercise this and see where we can take it.
Any other question would be, they are union employees. Have their union people been briefed, or is it an agreement, or could you explain how that relationship works with this proposal?
Absolutely. We had 2 staff meetings, one past Friday and one just yesterday. I actually invited the labor relations representative from the union to come and sit through the staff meeting. He was there. We have not talked today, but I did brief him on the content of the staff meeting prior to, and I believe what we'd hear from that is a positive reception, because we're looking, again, at a holistic approach. We're looking at everything. We're not just trying to tackle one area. And I certainly can get an answer for that, but I believe the response would be positive.
Good. Thank you, Dave.
And this is an approach of quality over quantity. So we want the quality of each position to be raised so that people want to be there long term and can feel good about the employment that they have in such an important position.
The 18-hour shift, addressing that issue is a big concern. Am I not right?
That is correct. And that may necessitate a review of the 12-hour shift, but it definitely will necessitate a review of overtime policies. The other thing I didn't touch on, and I'll move on, but we're also going to incentivize the training initiatives. So we want people that are working as trainers that want to be trainers and are there for all the right reasons, and they have the right attitude, the right attendance, and the right job knowledge, and all those components that's going to train their successors, so to speak, to be at the level that we want them to be on behalf of the service to the citizens. So that is one of the other things that will come forward in this, is a strong training package, not only just for the general staff, but potentially even looking at a full-time trainer that's designated to the communications center to help facilitate consistent and regular training opportunities.
I'm really happy to see that we're looking at some qualitative factors when it comes to, improving operations, making operations more bearable for our call takers. I think that's really good. I think this has been a long time coming. I mentioned that I was looking through some meeting minutes from years ago, and I saw the turnover that we had then from 911 call takers. So I think that's a good approach. How long do you think, how much time has to pass before we can evaluate this and see its effectiveness?
I think some of it will be in a relatively short format. So a reduction when we have all the tools in place to reduce or eliminate the 18-hour shifts. I think at that point, everybody's going to have that aha moment where they realize, I'm not going to be put in an 18-hour position. But the second side of this is, once we can actionize potentially a career path going forward, I think that's going to produce a little bit lighter step as they walk forward, because they can see where they're able to go. Now, when we talk about looking internally, we also want to look externally. So where we talk about retention, also want to talk about recruitment. So we want people to look at the Emergency Communications Center in Washington County as a place they want to be. When they see not only the dollar value of what they're going to start at, they can look at where they can go, and they can see a way to get there. So I think some of these things, and again, the 18-hour shift, regularly scheduled breaks, those things are going to be relatively short. The other things are going to be they're going to be a little longer, because they involve training, and some of that training is going to take some time to move through. And we have 42 staff on the emergency communications floor, and in varying degrees, some are fully cross-trained, some are not. So when we create those financial pathways forward, we also have to create the training platform that allows them to get there as quickly as possible, but it has to be as responsibly as possible, meaning we can't sacrifice the quality of service just to get somebody to a better wage, if that makes sense. So there are going to be challenges with this, but we're up to it, we're ready for it, and our intent is to actionize each of these as quickly as we can.
Very good, Dave. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Meritus Medical Center agreement for law enforcement coverage of Mr. Mullendore and Mr. Shaver. How are you two today? Good afternoon.
Introduce Lee Shaver, who's the Vice President of Professional Support Services for Meritus Medical Center. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're here before you today to talk about a Meritus Medical Center agreement for law enforcement coverage. It's primarily for the emergency department, but it's actually throughout the hospital. It's not just for the emergency department. So back in June of 2017, Lee came to me and asked about how we could provide law enforcement coverage for the emergency department because of some of the issues and so forth that were beginning to happen, and the employees requested that as well. And so we worked over a period of time to put a proposal together, and we did so. And then back in November, Lee contacted me to say that the board at Meredith Medical Center would approve the proposal. And at that point, we started working with the county attorney's office to come up with an agreement that would be agreeable to the county as well as to Meredith Medical Center. What this agreement does is actually would allow us to hire 4 deputies who would be eventually full-time at the Meredith Medical Center. In the interim, we would be, Meredith would actually pay the sheriff's office overtime to work certain hours through the interim period, while the 4 went through an academy and also through field training. Once they get cut loose for solo patrol, at that point we would assign a supervisor and 3 experienced deputies to the Meredith Medical Center for that position. Meredith would be providing all equipment, uniforms, vehicle, et cetera, as part of the agreement. And we also have the opportunity at any time we can modify the agreement through the, if both parties or all parties agree to this. We do have the concurrence of the county attorney's office as far as legal sufficiency for the agreement. And at this point, I'll ask if Lee has any comments.
No, I appreciate the introduction, Sheriff, and also the statement on our behalf. And this agreement represents a culmination of work that we've been doing at Meredith to improve the security posture of the organization. I think it's appreciate everybody's efforts. I know I hand-delivered the executed agreement on Meredith's behalf to Kirk directly in preparation for this meeting. And I think that the work that this represents is an answer to what our employees have asked us for, that the board supports. And we just look forward to having this settle in full effect next year after the candidates go through the training program that starts next month. And so the overtime coverage is a position that we're comfortable with because it'll get us access to the sheriff's deputy. And we've already started to work through that operationally, conceptually, and just still waiting on the final agreement to be signed so we can move forward.
Happy to answer any questions or comments.
Who currently takes care of your law enforcement issues?
Go ahead.
Right now, what happens is if there is an issue that affects law enforcement, Meredith calls into the 911 center, makes a request for law enforcement to respond. They do have their own security, which is a non-armed force that addresses security issues within the hospital itself. Nothing's really going to change in that respect.
So they're still going to have their security?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. Our primary response is still on our own staff and de-escalation techniques that our staff are trained on. The augmentation from the security perspective through the sheriff's office is that a little more authoritative presence with arrest authority, and I think it'll just help augment because it's a layered approach to security just through the wanding, entry points that we started March 1st, and then this as well will help improve the security environment overall.
Since these are uniformed county deputies with, as you mentioned, arresting powers, if we had a situation somewhere in the county that needs all hands on deck,
yes,
are they able to leave? And
yes, the agreement does allow for that, just the same as it does for the community deputies. The wording is exactly the same. That's correct.
Okay, and Meredith will purchase the startup cars.
Yes, they will pay for everything, the salaries, et cetera.
So what happened in this agreement, if Meredith is sold, is there something in the agreement where the new ownership would have to continue this agreement?
There's, as I say, I don't know if you have any answer to that, but I can look here. Similar to the other one I was talking about, the other one talked about that there was their successors were bound, but I don't know if that's in this provision. Kirk and Kendall were working on this. So.
Yeah, I mean, they can assign the agreement. However, were it to be sold, I would think that assuming both parties wanted it to continue, it would continue on the same terms as expressed herein.
But
obviously,
if that were to happen and then the new ownership wouldn't want to continue this agreement? What happens to the vehicles? Do they remain with Washington County?
That's, it
what hap-
remains a property of
Then
the
what
county.
happens to the officers? Do the officers,
At that point, we would come back before the commissioners and make a informed decision at that point. There would be nothing. This is a 5-year agreement with self-renewing each year after that. So I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but that whoever the new owners would be in that case would be contractually obligated to maintain that.
I was going to say, I found it when I looked
Thank
at
you.
it. Obviously, it is binding. The agreement, all terms, conditions, and covenants will inure to the benefit of and binding upon the parties and their respective successors and assigns. So obviously, the county's not going to be sold, but if there's a successor,
Well, respectfully, I was curious as to why that's come up twice.
I mean, obviously, whoever the successor would be bound by bound by this, any obligations under the terms of this agreement. It was in there, just.
and then after 5 years?
It's self-renewing unless either party.
Okay, so what happens to the officers after 5 years if they decide not to renew?
Again, that would be something we would come back, if we have open positions that have not been filled at the sheriff's office, obviously we could move them into those positions. If not, we would come back to the county commissioners and if they need to be laid off or whatever, that would be.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever laid anyone off.
Exactly.
And we've delivered this on behalf of the staff, and I don't think it's any position that we've discussed that we would want to go back on, and we don't anticipate.
And I understand.
You know, so.
I just have to answer to the population, so.
I will tell you, commissioners, we do have those slots ready to go into a May 14th academy. So
Yeah, that's another question. Who pays for the training of these 5 officers?
actually, the sheriff's office will pay for the training because they will actually benefit us as well, because they will be able to, on an overtime assignment, other duties outside of the emeritus contract be available, as well as for an emergency response.
I know for me, I'm not ready to move forward. When's the deadline to move forward with this? For me, I'm not ready today.
We're ready to move forward now.
Okay, so
We don't,
we
we
vote
can't.
today, I'm not.
We are unable to wait, commissioners, because we either put them in the May 14th academy or we don't.
Yeah, well.
The next academy would not be until
I
probably
can't
January.
support it today because I'm just
Okay.
not ready. I need to talk to staff. I have some more concerns and some more questions. And
How many deputies are we talking about?
4.
4. Do you already have the deputies or the applicants on file that they're ready to start?
We've already done the backgrounds. We had to prepare for this because time was of the essence. And the academy starts May 14th. So if we don't move forward, the next academy will not be until after the first of the year in January 19.
so what was the holdup? Why didn't we receive this much sooner?
Because of the legal departments from both coming up with an agreement.
Our legal department?
Well, it's not just ours, but both.
I think there were negotiations back and forth.
That's correct.
For months about how what this agreement was going to look like, what the terms of the agreement with this was going to be. So,
Yeah, this is a complex agreement. There were a lot of operational things to work out as well.
That's the reason I
as
can't
legal
support it today. It's too complex for me to support today.
I'm okay to move forward with it with the concurrence that county attorney's office has gave a concurrence, so I'm okay to move forward. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, a second for the recommend motion to move forward to approve the Meredith substation agreement as presented. We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
I would say that I would like to wait an extra week if possible. I'm leaning towards yes. There's a little bit more information I'd like to know.
I can tell you that we either move forward now or we don't move forward because I can't wait another week. We've pushed this to the limit, quite honestly. So, I mean, it's up to you all.
Push the commissioners to the limit.
Well,
But anyhow, okay.
Staff was aware of this, so.
Operationally, if you have any questions, I mean, the sheriff and I have been at the point of the discussion So if there's anything that we can help you answer at this time.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No. Opposed? No.
Well, I don't like being pressured like this. I'm in support of it. I will vote yes. Whether it's staff or someone else, it would have been nice to have had this a little earlier. I think what really sells me on this is that, again, should that unexpected need arise in the community, we do have a few extra deputies on staff somewhere. That's a big benefit to me, so I support it for that reason. But I would have liked to have known about it sooner.
Okay, 3-1. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
County Administration Building Project Closeout Change Orders, Mr. Hobbs.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm here to recommend that the board approve change orders in the amount of $104,873.46 for the County Administration Building construction contract and $161,509.41 for the design contract as part of the final project closeout. This was part of the final closeout for the first floor renovations to the County Administration Building at 100 West Washington Street. The contract value for building systems and BFM architects would be increased accordingly with the final closeout change order. The initial costs include expanded and extended design services, construction and construction administration. There is available budget in the capital improvement plan under BLD 070 and BLD 091. With that, if you have any questions.
Any questions, comments? If none, a motion to move forward with the recommended motion.
Motion to move forward.
For a second question, I guess.
Second, then discussion.
Motion second.
Now you can discuss.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. I guess I trying to wrap my brain around this. I think we thoroughly discussed the 161. Can you refresh my memory on the 104?
Sure.
I didn't realize that maybe they were separate and there's a cumulative number here.
Yes, that's the extended field overhead. That's part of the work with the contractor through his extended work time frame to complete the projects. Again, we had the first floor renovations. We also had the exterior project that was involved, complex project. It was approximately $3.8 million for the first floor renovation, $660,000 for work out for the exterior enhancements for ADA compliance. So those combined, he extended the design, the construction period as part of this whole project.
In a sense, the 104 is the contractor and the 161 is the architectural design firm, more or less.
Yes, the architectural design firm, $161,000 and $104,000
Okay,
for the contractor's work.
I know we've talked about it over time, and I just trying to wrap my brain around $265,000. Right. Okay. Yeah. So.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it, I attended this. They believe all
Everything.
they got to, in other words, I assume they got to sign a release to get this because they. Okay.
Yes, our understanding is fully and finally resolved.
Move to adjourn. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, before we adjourn, let's do the board at the airport.
Okay. Commissioners, the Airport Advisory Commission recommends appointing John Jack Miller to serve a 3-year term through April 30th, 2021.
Moved.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.